both have a vested interest in the topic. They're probably going to agree about a lot of things on this debate, but this one in particular, they don't agree about. So I'm looking forward to what we've got in store today. So the way that it's going to work, guys, is we're going to have opening statements. We're going to have 5 minutes each from both Rachel and Kathy, starting with Rachel today. And then we're going to get into 60 to 90 minutes of opening dialogue, followed by super chats. The rules of the debate are that if anybody feels like they're being over-talked, or if I notice there's like over-talking going on, or if somebody's not getting enough of a point of view in, or if the debate is being basically derailed, then I'm going to jump in and say we have to get it back on track. And both of the debaters can also appeal to the moderator if they feel like this is happening at any point. So those are the rules, guys. Beyond that, I don't think we'll have too many problems today, but if we do, then just let me know if you feel like you need to talk more, if the debate's getting derailed. So we're going to be reading out super chats at the end, like we said. Fair warning, guys, it probably will be 20 and up, depending on the volume of the chats, because we don't want to keep them here forever, reading out the super chats. So that might happen, just a fair warning. Although I'll stick around and read out all the chats after that are below 20. So the topic of the debate today is, should women vote? Should the 19th Amendment be repealed, or should it stay in place? Rachel Wilson thinks no, women should not vote, and that the 19th Amendment should not be in place. Kathy thinks, yes, this is a good thing. So with that, Rachel Wilson, you have 5 minutes on the clock, starting right now.
All right. Well, first I want to say thank you to Kathy for being here. She was one of the only people that wanted to step up and have this debate, and I have a lot of respect for her for that. And she's a bright lady, so this is not going to be the usual dog walking that I do with some of the other opponents that I have. So I'm excited about this. I think it'll be a great conversation. So with that, and thank you to Jake for coming up with this and hosting. With that, I will go ahead with my opening. So the idea of restricting women from participating in politics is not a new fringe idea. The 19th Amendment and the full political participation that it granted women in America is the new fringe idea. This debate goes back to at least 400 BC in Greece, when the question of women's involvement of politics was being hotly debated. Aristophanes wrote a play called Assemblywomen, in which he imagines a city where women are fully enfranchised. The women, under their leadership of the protagonist Praxagora, establish a radical new social and political order designed to unite the city and eliminate greed. This includes communism, in which all private property, land, and wealth are collectivized and distributed equally to create one giant civic family; state welfare, when the government assumes the responsibility of feeding and housing all its citizens; and, oddly, equal opportunity and love. So to ensure that no one is left out, all the citizens are allowed to sleep with anyone they want, provided that the men must first satisfy an old, ugly woman before moving on to a beautiful one, which is kind of a funny satirical device. But this was a play that was written to kind of critique this debate they were having in Athens at the time. At this time, Athens was reeling from recent battles with Sparta, and Aristotle claimed that the freedoms that were permitted to Spartan women in the days of Sparta's successful military campaigns led to its own defeat. He observed that at the time, women under Spartan constitution were not subject to the same restrictions as men and were fully enfranchised, and therefore lived luxurious lives while the men remained in military training. As a result, the Spartan women at the time of the Theban invasion in 369 BC, according to Aristotle, were utterly useless and caused more confusion than the enemy. Sound familiar? Women were not left out of politics by mistake or by ignorance for all of human history until the last century. This has been the case across time, culture, ethnicity, and religion for a reason. Our ancestors were not stupid, oppressive, or unjust. In fact, leaving women out of politics was done out of a sense of justice and dignity toward women and respect for the opposite and complementary capacities of each sex. American anti-suffragist Miss E.P. Peck put this most succinctly in 1914 when she stated that the entire purpose of the government was to protect persons and property, and this is going to be the crux of my argument today. These are things that she said women were not inherently capable of doing, and therefore it's unjust to saddle them with the responsibility of governance. So the Constitution says that the government's enumerated powers boil down to three basic responsibilities: defense, infrastructure, and enforcing the law. Since we know that only men can perform these duties, it's unjust and foolish to put the power to govern these things in the hands of women. Kathy and I are both Christians, which means we both justify our morality on Christian pillars like the Ten Commandments and every human being an image bearer of God, deserving of dignity, which glorifies him. This stands in contrast to modern progressive values like fairness and political equality, which are not found anywhere in the Holy Scriptures or in church tradition. They're actually tenets of the post Christian Enlightenment humanist philosophy. Kathy and I are also both politically aligned on the right. I've heard her argue against collectivism, but I wonder if she knows that a core tenet of Marxist communist philosophy is women's political equality with men, participation in the workforce, as well as the socialization of child rearing. All major communist philosophers of the last 200 years have argued that communism cannot be achieved without pushing women into politics and the workforce and out of the home, which is exactly what has happened. In fact, the 19th Amendment was a project of left progressive industrialists who knew they couldn't get the radical agenda of the progressive era passed without women voting. Without the 19th, we would not have to deal with the massive welfare state, gay marriage, Roe v. Wade, Obamacare, replacement of fathers with the states, or gender transitioning of children, all of which enjoy far more support from female voters than male voters. This is not a reason in and of itself to repeal the 19th, but it's a supporting argument that demonstrates the consequences of women's full political participation. The fastest way to destroy liberty and guarantee socialism is to grant all women political power. This new fringe experiment of women's political enfranchisement over the last century has been a massive failure. It has pushed the Overton window so far to the left that two married men having designer babies via surrogate can now be considered conservative. The United States was not founded as a universal suffrage democracy. It was to be a limited suffrage representative republic. This was also done by design for good reasons and not out of ignorance or a desire to oppress anyone. Like the Greeks, our founders could foresee that universal suffrage would lead to corruption and make our government essentially a shadow oligarchy rather than a defense against tyranny. I believe we should repeal all amendments which result in universal suffrage, including the 19th, and instead return to enforcing the 10th Amendment, which would allow states to determine the criteria for voting. There are many ways we could limit suffrage, but I think a good starting point would be declining to grant it to people who are utterly incapable of building, maintaining, or defending our nation.
That's 5.
Okay.
Oh, perfect timing. Kathy, whenever you're ready.
Yes. Jake, thank you so much for offering up your platform for us to have this conversation. Rachel, thank you for saying yes to this as well. I truly appreciate it. And I'm very excited to be a part of the conversation. I raised my hand when you were asking the question, Jake, who wanted to come on and debate Rachel, because I believe people like me, that we need to do a better job, like myself and like Rachel, actually, that we need to do a better job of going out into the marketplace of ideas and competing for the heart and minds of people. We cannot keep pretending that fringe ideas will remain fringe ideas and won't become something within the mainstream of America. I mean, we made that mistake before. Remember when they said, when we said it'll never happen, a man in a dress going into a little girl's restroom, that'll never happen. Or when we said boys competing in girls' sports, that'll never happen. Or when we said our nation will open up, or when the fringe said, let's open up the borders and flood our country with millions of people, we said that'll never happen. And look at where we find ourselves. So when I hear a conversation that may not be a part of mainstream America, but a conversation that is being had nonetheless in various corners, especially on my side of the political aisle, that says women cannot be trusted with the ballot. And if we simply removed a woman's right to vote, then magically the country will start to heal itself tomorrow. I believe we cannot ignore that. And I believe we must meet that energy head on. So Rachel, I've already said in so many words that she believed that, well, in her book, I read your book, that in her book that a woman maternal instinct makes her susceptible to being manipulated. And that as a result of a woman's emotions being weaponized against her, that women go out and we vote and make decisions that are not in her best interest nor in the country's best interest. But I believe that the answer to manipulated voters is not going out and stripping citizens of their rights. I believe the answer to a manipulated voter is for us to go out and teach better, for us to go out and organize better, to go out and be willing to organize and to teach and to persuade better, but to also be willing to go out and stand in the marketplace of ideas and speak the truth, even if we think we may end up in the crosshairs of the left or someone else. So I come to this debate on first principles because first principles don't care about your opinions. First principles don't care about your emotions. It's all about the truth. I built my life on trying to figure out what is true and then go about the process of building my life. And that's how I'm coming to this debate. And what's true? Let's start with our founding fathers, because I agree with them. They said that there is a God in heaven, a capital C creator, and that he has created every man equally. They also went on to say that not only did he create each of us equally, but that he has endowed us with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then they go on to say, in order to secure these rights, because there's always a bully somewhere waiting to infringe upon our rights, they said men create or institute governments, but that government receive or derive their just power by the consent of the governed. Newsflash, Rachel and others, I'm a part of the governed. And so not only did they say that our right, that the king do not give us rights, the government doesn't give us rights, the Pope doesn't give us rights, but that God has given us these rights. And the government's job is to simply secure those rights, not rescind them or take them away. So under our republic, political power comes from the citizens. Again, as a woman, I'm still a part of the citizens. So as we move into this debate, I want to make some things clear. The 19th Amendment did not make me a person. The 19th Amendment did not make me a citizen. The 19th Amendment did not give me any rights. The 19th Amendment simply prohibited the government from denying and abridging the rights I already have because the government didn't give me anything. So, and, just to make clear, politicians didn't do women a favor back in 1920 by passing and ratifying the 19th Amendment. Again, they just simply recognized what already existed. So some people, Rachel included, want the government to now come and take away a right that the government never created. I'm sorry, but that's not conservatism. That's more like tyranny. That's more like government overreach. So I'm not here to argue that women are perfect voters. We are not, but neither are men. I'm here to argue that bad voting patterns do not erase truth. I'm here to say that once you start yanking on the thread of the 19th Amendment, we risk unraveling the very premise on which our country was founded upon, which is man did not give us rights, God did.
Okay, ladies. Well, with that, we can move into the opening statements. Don't forget to get your questions in, guys. We will be reading super chats out at the end, so don't forget to get your super chats in. And with that, we have open dialogue. Let's go.
So, Kathy, you seem to think that the 19th Amendment was simply recognizing something that was always there that the government failed to recognize for the first, 150 years of the nation, and that, according to you, the founders wanted one person, one vote. If that's the case, why didn't they set things up that way?
Well, I mean, why didn't they free all slaves when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution? Again, our founding fathers were not perfect. However, they wrote a document that is the greatest political document ever written. And I believe what we have experienced over the past 250 years is this long march towards fulfilling the promises that were found in the Declaration of Independence. And that is that all men are created equally and that God has endowed all of us with certain rights, and even to the slave as well as to women. That is the right to life, the right to freedom and the right to be able to pursue whatever form of happiness that I want.
Then why didn't they grant all men the vote? Why was the nation founded with only a small percentage of even white men voting? If
Yeah,
they truly believed all men, if in other words, we're arguing over what those phrases mean, right? Because we don't agree on what they mean. I don't think they meant every single individual person should have equal political enfranchisement. To say that all human beings are created in the image of God and have equal dignity before the Lord is certainly different than saying every single person should have a say in the governance of the nation. If they believed that's what it meant, why didn't they set it up that way from the outset?
and again, I'm sure you probably know this, that one of the requirement for people to vote was back then in that time was whether or not you own property or
Mhm.
land. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, so if we're going to take away a woman's right
Mhm.
to vote, why not take away the right to vote of those who don't own land? And after
Oh,
we take away their rights, I mean, should we also rescind the 15th Amendment that gives the right of Black people to vote? No, it becomes a very slippery slope when whoever has the auto pen in their hand that they get to make up the rules on who gets to vote, because at that point you're no longer living in a republic, you're now living in banana republic, you're now living in
well,
Venezuela, right? And
right
now we're
now,
walking around
right
saying como
now,
estas.
but right now, we're not living in a representative republic. We are living in a universal suffrage democracy, which is not what the country was founded to be. That is not what the framers had in mind. And if it was, they would have set it up that way, but they didn't. We had extremely limited suffrage for most of our history. We had things like poll taxes, literacy taxes, religious exemptions. Some places you had to maybe be a firefighter or do some kind of civic duty first, land ownership. You had to be much older. The voting age wasn't 18 until recently either. The founders set up the nation with all kinds of restrictions on suffrage. It was never meant to be one person, one vote. That's
Right.
clear. That's clear because it never was until very recently. And what you're describing is a movement not toward tyranny, or not a movement away from the tyranny of the founders towards something better. What you're describing is a movement away from the founding of the nation, which was conservative and a representative republic, and the progressives progressing toward a universal suffrage democracy, which has resulted in tyranny. We do not have the freedoms we had at the founding. We pay the taxes we pay in this country would have the founders rolling in their graves, just as one example. So I'm wondering, again, you've kind of described like, oh, I'm thinking that this is what they wanted all along. It's taking us hundreds of years to get to where they really wanted us to be. Do you have any evidence to support that the intention of the founders was to have universal suffrage?
Allow me to say that a couple of things. One, when I was working as Vivek Ramaswamy's National Grassroots Director, and as his advisor, one of the things we talked about, and he became perhaps the first modern day president under my lifetime anyway, to actually say that perhaps we shouldn't have universal suffrage, which is very different from what you and I are here talking about. You and I are here talking about whether or not women should be allowed to vote specifically. Now, what universal suffrage, however, yeah, I agree with you that, and Vivek put it out there. We talked about it as a team and we agreed with that perhaps, those who are graduating from high school, perhaps they do need to do either take the civic test that most people have to take when they want to become a legalized citizen in our country and pass that test, or do some kind of civic engagement or enroll in or sign up for the military. I'm not here to argue against that. What I'm specifically here to talk about is, whether or not women should be allowed to vote. And I stand by what I said. Now, is it hard? Yeah. But you know what? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. So I agree with you. We are a long way from even when I was born. I mean, who would have ever thought we would, be talking about two men, renting the womb of another woman to produce a baby is a family, and we're okay with that, and designer jeans. No, yes, I agree with you on that as well. We have gone a long way from what is moral, what is good, what is right. But I'm sure you probably are aware of this, but John Adams also said that the Constitution is made only for a moral and religious people. It is completely inadequate for any other kind of people, right? So you and I would probably agree that, well, what is moral? It simply means people who know the difference between right and wrong. People who know the difference between up, down, a boy and a girl. You're right. Like that's where we are right now. That we're supposed to pretend we don't know the difference between a boy and a girl. So you're right. I truly believe that our nation is in trouble and that we're skating on the precipice as a country when you can't even determine what is a boy, what is a girl, where the Constitution is at stake. But again, I go back to, as I said in my opening statement, that the answer to a manipulated or ignorant or moral or immoral group of people is not stripping away rights that the government didn't give in the first place, but it is for people like you and I to go out into the marketplace and start persuading better, teaching better, organizing better, right? So that's what I agree with.
So you don't seem opposed theoretically to limiting suffrage. You conceded that there could be cases where maybe we should, and that we need to talk about why we would want to limit women's suffrage specifically. And then you brought up rights. And so let's get into rights. It would be my assertion, and I think this is irrefutable, but we'll see what you think. Isn't it the case that any notion of women's rights is granted and enforced by men at their behest? Do women have rights if men do not grant and enforce those rights?
Of course we have rights, whether they grant it or not.
Okay, so
and I said that in my opening statement, that
so
these rights already existed.
If President Trump signed an executive order tomorrow rescinding women's rights, just saying, we're going to repeal this 19th, and that's that, what would women do about it?
Well, what did the people at the Boston Tea Party do about it in 1773?
Well,
because they believe, because the American Revolution that sparked the nation.
But women didn't go to the Boston Tea Party and start throwing.
That's not true. Have you ever been? Have you ever been there? Have you ever seen any of the documentaries? Women were there as well. Women were there as well. Listen, you and I are not going to disagree.
Being in the audience is not the same thing as
you and I are not going to disagree, Rachel, that women are not men. I agree. Women are not men.
Right.
And I said it before it became cool to say it, right? And you and I are not going to disagree that I cannot do what Jake can do, right? Yes. I cannot do what my son can do or my husband can do, right? So I'm not here to argue that women and men are interchangeable and we're just widgets. I don't subscribe to that. My entire life has been against the baked in lies of feminism. Hold on, I think
sure. But as it applies to what we're talking about right now, when you say we have these inalienable God-given rights, I would say, actually, God did not put in the 10 commandments, thou shalt let women vote, or everybody gets to vote, right? These are new, as I said in my opening, these are new post-Enlightenment ideas that everyone is equal in every single way. And what I'm saying is that why should women have the same political power as men when we do not have to register for the draft when we turn 18 like a man does? We cannot this was a main argument of the anti-suffrage women. And maybe if you read my book, you know that only about 4% of women strongly supported suffrage in the beginning, and women voted against having the vote so often that the women's suffrage associations stopped letting women vote on whether they wanted to vote, because the women kept saying, no, we don't want to be a political power block. We don't want to be involved in politics. It's dirty, nasty stuff. We have our own sphere of influence, and that's where we belong. They argued that women cannot protect the borders. They cannot build and maintain the infrastructure of this nation, and they cannot go to war to defend our country. So why should we have equal say in those matters with men?
So if a man becoming capable of defending the border or going to war, should we also strip him of his right to vote? Is it based on that? No, I don't think it's based on that.
This is a really common argument, but it's a lot.
Rachel, in order to have a conversation, we have to go back and forth. So because you just asked, some pointed questions. And again, I have to go back to, you said, that thou shalt vote is not in the 10 commandment, but who don't vote? I mean, what group of people are ruled over and don't have a say in anything and just have to do whatever the king or their owner or their master tell them. God did not create me to be a slave. And so, and our founding fathers recognized that there is a God in heaven who has made all of us equally, not that all of us, there is a hierarchy. I do believe that. I'm all about Ephesians, right? And so, however, there is a God who has created us to have certain rights. And again, the right to live, the right to have freedom, and the right to pursue my life in the manner in which I deem I want to pursue that life. And now the government's role, they were very clear in the Declaration of Independence that became the framework for the Constitution. The government's role is not to give me rights. The government role is to, one, secure those rights. But in order to secure those rights, the government has to recognize that I have these rights, right? And that the government derives its power from the governed. Now, if the American Revolution was launched on the belief that, for example, taxation without representation is tyranny. And so if we now rescind a woman's right to vote, are you also proposing that I no longer have to pay federal income taxes? Is that the quid pro quo that's on the table? Because if that urge that if I have no say in how I'm being represented, then I don't want that kind of government. And in fact, it was a strong enough urge that caused the colonists to go into a very violent assault on England. And so if that principle applies to men, why doesn't it apply to women? Because by 1913, women were being taxed without the ability to have a voice in the government.
Okay, so there's a lot that I think we should kind of try to keep our back and forth a little bit briefer, just so that we're not monologuing to the point where we have 10 points to address back and forth. It might be a good idea, but
I will agree with that if you do too.
Yeah, first you didn't address my point about women's rights I mean, this is something people don't like to confront. They don't like to hear this because we've had 100 years of feminist propaganda telling us otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't have rights unless men grant them to us and enforce them on our behalf. You and I, Kathy, are not going to rise up and physically take back our rights if they are rescinded. And I can give you examples of this from all around the world, but we also have an example right here in the United States where in the state of Utah, women were granted, it was the second state to give women a vote when it was still a territory. And under the Edmunds-Tucker Act, that right was taken away in the 1870s, I believe. And so women in Utah had the vote for a couple decades. It was taken away for about 50 years before it was granted again in the 1920s. So this idea that once the government says you have a right, that you're always and forever going to have that is silly. We saw this with Roe v. Wade and women losing their minds over abortion. The men grant rights to women. And because of that, because men are the ones who build and maintain this country, they defend its borders, they fight and die in wars, they are obligated by law to sign up for the selective service, and women are not. Why do we deserve equal say in how any of that goes? We cannot, I don't think women should be telling men how to build and maintain the country, how to defend the country, how to enforce its laws, because we cannot do those things. And now, can you answer specifically just to that portion of my argument?
Yes.
And we want to keep it a bit more brief here, guys, the answers. And otherwise, if it's not brief, we're going to have to do the 1 minute or 2 minute monologues back and forth.
I agree.
But yeah, let's try and address the questions.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. I wrote down a little bit of what you said. You said a lot, but I wrote down as much as I could. Your question is men grant rights.
Mm-hmm.
And women, and women cannot do anything, like cannot, uprise against. I mean, you said if and a woman cannot rise up and defend those rights, right, or the recension of those rights. Right. And so again, the fallacy here, are you saying? I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what you're saying. So you're saying that if I cannot rise up and defend those rights, then I don't have those rights.
I'm saying that as
I mean, to Jake's point, just yes or no. I mean, is that
No,
true?
that's
Because
so
that's
what you're
what you
missing
said.
is
I wrote it
what you're
down.
what you're
Do you want to
missing
just
is
elucidate
that,
the point? Yep.
yes,
Yep.
men as a whole, as a group, we rely on them to enforce any rights we have. We can't enforce rights on our own behalf. So we are
Really?
asking and petitioning men for those rights, and those men, benevolent as they are, grant them and enforce them on our behalf.
And so allow me to ask. So you said men grant us these rights. And if they and I'm assuming you're alluding to men have the strength and the ability to enforce these rights. And if they don't enforce these rights, then women don't have the strength or the ability to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So are you saying to me then, I just want to make sure that I'm clear here, that, I mean, Jake, I saw one of your videos where you were boxing and all of that. I love MMA, by the way. So are you saying to me that if a weaker man comes in, let's just use you, Jake. If a stronger man comes in and he's able to beat you up and you can't do anything to defend yourself against him, does that mean Jake no longer has rights because he can't he doesn't have the physical capacity to do anything about this man coming in?
So you're not, I'll try again because you're not quite understanding it. So
well, no, I think I am understanding what you're saying.
Let me explain. You wanted clarification, so I'll clarify. When we say women are the one who have children,
okay,
that means in general, not all women have children and not all women can have children, but only women can have children. It's the same with men. Not all men can fight in a war. Not all men defend the border, but only men can do those things. So that's where we have to clarify. We can't be stuck in this hyper individualist mindset where we're thinking each and every single person and every exception. The exception proves the rule. So if you look around the world, women don't have rights in every society.
Okay,
I'm just explaining how things are, not how they ought to
defend
be.
the rest of the world. I'm talking about our country, which is the greatest country that has ever existed. I'm sure you will agree. I don't know if you agree. I'm assuming. But America is the greatest country that has ever existed. And it's the greatest country that has ever existed because it was founded upon these values that have found their way into the framework of not only the Constitution, but the Declaration of Independence. And so I'm not very interested in the rest of the world, but just our country. And again, your premise, if your premise is based on strength, the ability, then it has to apply even to the weak man or to the baby who can't defend themselves. And I just find it's just so full. It's illogical to try to argue that I should not have rights. Because I mean,
I didn't say you should not. See, this is where you're not using logic. I did not say should not
be able to vote. That I should not be able to vote. Now, I spent 10 years in the military. I trained alongside men in the military. I was in the foxholes. I got thrown out of planes. I was out there with my M16. I was leading men over hills and under valleys and all over the place. So I was defending. I am very strong. But now does that, but should my rights, whether or not I have rights, be based upon whether or not I can beat you up or I can force you to give them back? No, that's ridiculous.
But you're straw manning argument. You're straw manning my argument.
Just quickly, guys, 1 second. I think that there is a little bit of a disconnect going on here. So Rachel, I'll get you to elucidate this. Just say, for example, Rach, if you can do a clean and press heavier than me in the gym, all right, does that mean that you should be able to take my rights away and that I shouldn't have rights?
Of course not. That's not the argument. The argument.
So what is the argument? Because you said it's based on strength.
No, it's based on use of force. So everything in government.
Just so we can understand the argument here, let's make this distinction, Rach.
Okay. And then let's move on because I don't think.
Well, this is the linchpin of the argument. This is probably the foundation of what we're talking about here is that, and as I said, anti-suffrage women, the vast majority of women who did not want women's participation on a large scale in politics argued this very point. And they said, look, God has granted men the monopoly on force. They're the only ones. Even if Kathy's out there with her M16, only if we had an all-female military and we had an all-female border defense and we had an all-female engineering team trying to build infrastructure, it wouldn't work. Just like if we tried, but even if we help men with those things sometimes, men don't need our help to do that. And historically, they've never needed our help to do that. We can have an all-male military, an all-male police force, an all-male border patrol, and only men building bridges and skyscrapers and roads. That works. So what I'm saying is, as a whole, like I tried to explain, only women can have babies. That doesn't mean every single woman has a baby and that if she doesn't have a baby, she's not a woman. In that same way, only men can use force to enforce rights, anyone's rights.
Okay.
So this is why sex, this is what separates the criteria when people will say, well, why don't we just start discriminating the vote against, people of different races or people of different economic strata or things like that. The difference maker is that the task of government is to defend persons and property, and women cannot do that. That's a task that only men can do. So why should women have equal say in the government when they cannot perform the functions of government and only men can do that?
So are you saying, because, okay, again, just parroting back what you said, that only women can have children. And only men can't have the force to defend. Am I right? Is that what you said? Okay. So let's not retract that. So then, therefore, only women can have children, but only women can have abortion. So does that mean abortion is a right? And that because Jake or my husband cannot or Andrew cannot have an abortion, then they don't really have anything to say, and it really is my body, my choice?
No, that doesn't apply because the baby because the baby we're talking about has equal DNA from the man as it does the woman.
I mean, no. Because even a woman who can have a child is not just 100% my DNA. It's my husband's DNA as well.
That's what I just said. Kathy, that's what I just said.
I know.
What I said was the baby has half from each parent.
Because a woman has children, then this is what women do. But only men have the strength to defend. So then that's what men do. What if the baby is a girl? So what if the baby is a girl? What I'm saying is that
that's not analogous. That analogy doesn't work.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
No, it's not analogous.
You have said many times
when you're done.
No, thank you, Rachel. Rachel, you have said many times that only a woman can have children. Only a woman can have children. This is what women do. This is women's work. Men can have it. So men doesn't really, so then that's meant that this is women's territory. And then you said men can defend, men have the strength, men can do what they want to do. So then women really shouldn't be telling men what to do. Okay, now carry that thought to the next level, which is, what about abortion? Now, for everyone who's listening, I'm vehemently opposed to abortion. Vehemently opposed to abortion. I've always been opposed to abortion. But I'm just using your logic that
you're not using my logic.
I am.
Let's get Rachel to explain.
Once again, I don't know if you're not understanding, or maybe you haven't thought things through this way before. The reason these two situations are not analogous is for two reasons. One reason is the fetus in question is equally belonging to the father as it is to the mother, because it has half of each of their DNA. Yes. And the second defeater for this, and why it's not analogous, is that if at any time men want to rescind abortion rights, they can, and you have to have the baby, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it just reinforces my point.
So basically, women are just slaves, like women just have no voice. Women, because a man can take away anything. A man can give me rights, take away rights, beat me up, not beat me up, give me food, don't give me food. I mean, like, what do we do? Rachel, I mean, and
this
again,
we're facing the fact here.
One moment, Rachel, one moment. Allow me to speak, please. That
you've been speaking way more than I've been speaking. You go on long diatribes, and then
all right. Just not to get into the meta conversation. We'll just try and land the plane a bit quicker. I think that'll be best for everybody.
Well, she
Kathy,
doesn't
do you let?
respond to my point. She responds to what she thinks I'm saying, and no matter how much I correct her on what I'm
That's
saying,
why,
she
yeah,
continues to
yeah.
respond to something else.
No, Jake, don't say
We've been
yeah,
trying
yeah, because
to
that's
we've been
not
trying
right.
to get the
I
points
am responding.
elucidated. I think I do understand the points that have been made, but we're just trying to make those distinctions because I'm not sure you've 100% gotten the distinctions. But Kathy, ask the question that you wanted to ask, and then Rach, you can elucidate if you need to.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've proven my point, but Rachel, why did you say again, only women can have children? What was your point behind that?
Because I'm saying that in the same way that not all women can have children, some are born with fertility problems or reasons they can't, or
Right.
some women decide not to, but only women are capable of having children. It's the same, it's analogous to how, even though not every single man fights in a war and not every single man is building infrastructure or defending the border, only men can do that. And because of that, only men should be the ones voting on how the government is run, because men are the only ones that can perform the essential duties of government.
Okay, got it. So only men can defend. So although all men can't defend, only men can defend. So therefore, men should be the ones who make the decisions because they can defend. They have the strength and the power and the muscles to really force their will, and women can't really do anything against that. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's not
Okay,
it's
okay,
not
no,
a
okay,
but
okay,
wait,
okay,
I have to
no, okay.
clarify.
Well,
It's
no,
not a
because I
moral. I'm not saying should. I'm not saying, well, men should enslave us. They don't.
I know
Clearly
they
they
don't.
don't.
I know they don't. I know,
And
and that's not what I'm saying. And that's not what I'm
at the
saying.
founding,
I'm
you say that
repeating.
you're a
I'm repeating
constitutionalist, and
what
at the
you said.
founding, the founders agreed with
I'm
me.
simply repeating what you said, Rachel.
Mhm.
So you did say that, which is what I've been saying the entire time, which then again leads me to, so only women can have children. All women can have children, but only women can have children.
Yes.
So again, according to your logic, only women can have abortions. All women don't have
No.
abortions, but only women can have abortions.
Well, yes, only women can have abortions.
Therefore, I'm gonna take this huge leap across 27 buildings to get to my conclusion, which is what you did with your only men example. I'm going to take these huge leapfrogs over here to get to a conclusion that says, therefore, abortion is a right, that because only women can do it and men can't.
That
And
doesn't
it's my body,
follow.
my choice. Yes, it does. Well,
No,
no.
that doesn't follow.
No,
And I'll
but what
explain
doesn't
again why it
follow-
doesn't.
No, thank you. But what doesn't follow, Rachel, is your premise altogether. And I saw that quite
I'm
a
trying
bit.
so hard.
I actually don't know if I've actually looked at a lot of these debates, and I'm not sure I actually understand the argument here in terms of what we're getting at. So,
well, I
if you could just try and summarize it as quick.
Abortion is not analogous, though, because as I said, we're talking about killing a child, and the child is owned equally by the man who gave 50% of his DNA to help create it. So it wouldn't be analogous to say that because only women can have abortions, they should be the only ones who have a say, my body, my choice, no uterus, no opinion. No, that is not, that does not logically follow for two reasons. One is the fetus does not only belong to the woman and we're killing the fetus. Yes, it's in her body, but that's just its location. It still belongs equally to the man. And the second reason is if men don't grant you abortion rights, you don't have abortion rights. So it's not analogous to my defense and infrastructure argument.
So again, allow me to say what I said at the very beginning. I am not here to defend the baked in lies of feminism. My entire life has been doing the opposite. When I find out what a feminist principle may be, I have done all that I can to do the actual reverse. And that is how, again, I've been able to build a life that I'm extremely happy with. But again, are you familiar with the fallacy non sequitur?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Because I find that you do that in your book. Now you did an amazing job in your book, Rachel, on explaining the occult aspect behind feminism, double clicking on the original suffragists and, and all the things that they were up to. And I mean, I found that part of your book to be, just very educational. I'm very grateful for that piece of it.
Yeah, thank you.
But then there would be other times in the book that you would make a premise and then you would do non sequitur, right? Fallacy. And for those who don't know what that is simply, I mean, it's Latin for girl, you just doing way too much. And the math isn't mathing on some things that is too
a
many.
non sequitur is exactly what I said you were doing, where the premise does not, the conclusion does not follow
your
from the premise.
I didn't even make a premise except to try to understand your original premise. I was trying to answer your question, but in order to answer your question, I wasn't making a premise. I was saying, well, then if this is what you believe, then then the next obvious step would be this other thing. I wasn't making a premise. I haven't made a premise yet.
But I pointed out
made a premise yet. I was just trying to understand yours. But you start with the premise that says women are emotional and their maternal instincts get weaponized and manipulated.
Okay, let's try to stick to what we're talking about here in the debate.
We do have to try and land the plane. Just quickly, guys. When the moderator speaks, everybody has to be silent. Okay. So just quickly, non sequitur. I've just looked up the definition of it. Latin phrase that translated to that it does not follow. Okay, so the premise,
right, which is
conclusion,
what I said.
the conclusion doesn't follow from the premise. Okay, so
and that's what I'm saying you're doing.
Just quickly, are we going now into critiques? We're going into book critiques now. Yeah. Is that what we're going into? Because it looks like we're going into something new here.
We have to. We still haven't gotten past force doctrine.
But what? No, I'm not critiquing the book. I said I really enjoyed the book. I've read the book, and I enjoyed learning a lot about the history of the book. I would encourage anyone to get your book. While you're at it, let me plug my own book. You can get my book as well. Nothing to lose, everything to gain, being Black and conservative in America. But I really enjoyed your book, especially the historical aspect of it. I did not know all of those different things. Now I know it. And that too has come, I mean, it was just really good. I love the historical part of it. I'm just saying is that you have a tendency, like you just did when we started off here, of making a premise, and the premise of why we're here on whether or not women should vote is your premise that I've heard you say in multiple interviews, what I read in your book as well, is that women are emotional beings with these maternal instincts.
Argument, but that's not the argument I just made, and I've got to stop you because you keep going off and reaching for other things.
Okay, go ahead.
The question I asked is, so let's take this abortion argument, for example, because you keep thinking this is analogous and it's not, and you're completely missing the point of the force doctrine argument, which is if men say tomorrow, hey, ladies, no more abortions for you, we cannot do anything about it. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not making a judgment claim as to whether or not that
we can't do anything about it because we can't beat them up.
Yeah, you got to be able to finish because
single sentence this whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be the case. I'm saying this is the case. The truth of the matter is that only men can perform the essential functions of government outlined in the Constitution, which is why the founders did not grant women voting rights, did not grant women full political enfranchisement. And I think that is the correct logical position, because unless you can explain to me why women should have equal say with men when we do not have to sign up for the draft, we cannot perform the essential functions of government, which is defending persons or property, why are we therefore entitled? Because a right is an entitlement absent duty. We don't have the same duty to protect and defend the nation men do. So why should we be entitled to that same right to vote on how it's governed?
And I disagree with you. And I disagree with you. And
but you have an argument as to why.
Well, and I'm telling you, I mean, and I actually started off, but you did say did not grant women what was that thought?
The founders did not grant us
that
voting
the founder
rights.
did not grant women voting rights, but the founders did not grant men who did not own property either. Should we go back to that?
I think that would be one consideration. However, let me answer.
We do have to when the question's asked, we have to make sure that we let them elucidate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be brief, but you asked the question. So I think that was good at the time when we had a very low population density and most people had to own land in order to live. Now we have mega cities and giant urban centers. So I would say a similar principle that would apply better to modern times would be net zero taxpayers. I think that if you do not have skin in the game, if you are taking more from the system than you are getting, or that you are putting in, then you should not have a vote. So I
Yeah.
would limit suffrage more to just no women. But my specific argument for women is just that, and you still haven't answered to the specific argument. You'll go to something else and say, well, what about this?
I'm not.
And
I'm not. I'm trying to understand what it is that you're saying, because it doesn't make sense to me, and I can't make it make sense when it doesn't make sense. And so,
well,
and
then
there's a
just
lot of
simply answer
fallacies
this
on it.
question. No, there's no
Well, you
fallacy
keep
in me
asking me
saying,
questions. Can we move on to another question? How much time have we spent on this? 53 minutes on this one thing, and I think I
the
basically
crux of
have
the
shown
argument,
you
but-
How about this? I've got an idea.
It's too slippery. It's too
All right.
slippery what you're saying. It's too many holes, and it doesn't. If
There's
it doesn't
no
apply,
holes.
if it
It's
doesn't
I
apply
think-
universally, you have all of these
The whole point
exceptions.
is that there are no
Ladies,
holes.
ladies. Okay. I think one good idea would be to potentially steelman each other's arguments. Okay. So just so that we think, just so we can sort of ascertain an understanding from both people. So Rachel, if you want to steelman Kathy's argument to the best of your ability, go for it.
Well, I
Her
mean, what
whole- are we-
argument? I haven't even been able to make an argument. I have not, we spent 54 minutes trying to understand what it is Rachel is actually saying. So now
You're
she's,
the
so
only one that
now
doesn't
she's slid
understand,
to,
though.
if you are not privileged enough to own land or to make a lot of money, then you too should lose your vote, which goes to which is a linchpin of mine. So we spent the whole 54 minutes of our debate just on this one, only a question.
I think just quickly,
Rachel
Kathy,
has
it was a little bit of a straw man, because at the start you were saying that you worked with Vivek's campaign, and that he so and the one of the things that he was speaking about was the civics test for young people, and that you kind of agreed with that. And then Rachel said that this land thing would be a consideration, one of the considerations. So it's sort of a similar thing. Maybe do you want to try and steelman Rachel's point then first, if you don't think that you've made your argument yet?
Well, I haven't even been able to make an argument. So
you steelman Rachel's argument, yeah.
I mean, I think I already have. I mean, it's exhausting at this point. It's 55 minutes on the same thing of like this kind of a dog chasing its tail. So if we could, here's a thought that I had in reading your book and trying to understand what it is that you think about all of this. I saw and watching and listening to some of your podcasts, and even here right now, 55 minutes into it, I find you overgeneralize the experiences, for example, of certain people, and you apply it to the whole, and that doesn't work very well. And, one of them being, you mentioned earlier about women in a particular state, I don't know if you said Arizona or where, who were able to vote I think this is probably maybe about 40 minutes ago when you were saying
Utah.
Some women were able to vote state by state, yada, yada. But even that is an over exaggeration of what it was like for those who didn't live in Utah. It was very spotty. I read in your book, I think I read it in your book, about the Married Women's Property Act of 1839. Even that, to your point, in Utah, certain states would come up with these laws to try to undo the coverture, which said a married woman loses her legal identity and comes under the cover of the husband. But it was spotty, and it wasn't applied evenly. And only those women who were privileged, owned land, had a lot of money or a lot of contacts, they were able to go before court and fight rigorously for whatever it is that they wanted, right? Whether they wanted to be able to sign a contract or purchase property or, inherit assets, whatever the case may be. But for those women who were not so fortunate, who grew up on a pig farm or who was poor, working class, or Black people, they didn't have those same kind of rights or abilities. And again, I find that like that's a huge piece of whether or not a woman should be able to vote or not be able to vote, is that even at the state level, the federal government comes in because the federal government made a uniform decision across the entire land. If we remove the federal law, the 19th Amendment, now we go back to individual states making it up as they see fit, which is not universal. It'll be spotty. Some things will be covered, other things will not be covered. And then women who are not fortunate, like I am, like you are, to have amazing husbands, they may need those rights.
I have no idea what all that you just said, what point you were making. I have no idea how this relates to women's suffrage or women's rights. Can you try to distill it down for me and make it a little bit more succinct?
Okay. The women's suffrage, women right to vote. In 1839, the Married Women Property Act started, and it started in every different state. Eventually, all the states had it, but it wasn't equal. It was spotty. And paper rights, just because it was rights on paper, did not mean it was realized rights. And yet, you had women who are not so fortunate as you and I, with great husbands, who needed the ability to have the right to go in and make a case before a judge, or to go in and to vote for what kind of government they wanted, to try to get laws in place that would actually benefit them. And it was difficult for them to do that. They did not have the power or the ability to go in and to make their case. What do you think about that?
I'm so lost.
Can I try and
sorry.
I think
I'm so
perhaps,
sorry. I have no idea what this has to do with it. So you
have
Can
no
I just say-
idea.
you're
You have
saying
no
system-
idea what the Married Women Property Act is. So I'm assuming you have no idea what that is.
I absolutely
And then you have no
know
idea
what that is.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So then the next
I don't know
part,
what point, Kathy. Let me
Right.
try to.
Yeah,
because
it has
the
to be an
next part,
argument.
Talk. So, are you saying that because some women were less fortunate, or there were class differences among women, that there have always been some women who weren't able to advocate for themselves?
yes.
And then, how does that apply to suffrage? Are you saying
how does
that
it not apply to suffrage?
So you're saying that if women have a vote and they can vote for a representative, that this somehow helps them with being in poverty
Absolutely.
or growing up on a pig farm? How? What?
No, it absolutely assists them, right? For example, judges are elected. And if a woman, let's say a poor woman, a working class woman, a Black woman went before a judge, which they probably would not go before a judge, but let's say they did go before a judge. They didn't have political clout. They didn't have a network. They didn't have a lot of money to persuade the judge to rule in their favor.
But that's a class problem, not a problem of gender.
One moment. But now,
that would apply to poor men too.
Even
So
with, I mean,
it's another non sequitur. That's
I'm
an
sorry,
actual
say it
non
again.
sequitur.
Say it again.
That's an actual non sequitur. So the
No, it's not
conclusion does not.
actually.
Yes, I'm.
No, it does not.
all right,
No, it does not.
let's have it go.
I'm trying to help you, Kathy.
We're going to have to go to timers. If we can't do this, we're going to have to go to timers in a second. We're going to go a minute on, minute off. But Rachel, explain the non sequitur really quickly.
I already know what the non sequitur is. I was the one who brought it.
Let's have Rachel explain it, because she's making the claim.
Explain how I made a non sequitur.
Yes. So, topic of the debate is whether or not women should vote. And you were saying that because there are some women who may have been poor or disadvantaged, that somehow voting rights are going to help them when they go before a judge, if they need a divorce or if they need something. And what I'm saying is that is a non sequitur. It doesn't apply to this conversation.
How does it not apply?
I'm explaining the conclusion doesn't follow from the premise, because that would apply to poor white men, poor Black men, poor anyone. That's a problem.
Men can vote, but men can vote.
But that's exactly. Now you're getting it. So even though men could vote, poor disenfranchised men who didn't have assets or whatever were going to still be disadvantaged in society, even if they could vote. So it's not a problem
Okay,
of
so let
sex,
me
it's a
explain
problem
that
of
piece of
class.
it. So let me explain that piece of it. What I'm saying is,
Two minutes on the
worked
clock.
with
We're
the
doing
political.
timers. 2 minutes on the
Okay.
clock.
I worked with the political campaign. I ran as a political candidate against Dr. Oz and many others. And what I'm saying is, a person who has the ability to vote, if they walk into my space when I'm running for office and they say, if you don't do this, or if you don't do that, or if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then I'm not going to vote for you. But not only am I not going to vote for you, I'm going to go over here and tell all my other women friends, and we're going to make sure that you are not allowed to hold this particular seat next time. That is power. And so for those particular women, for example, because we're talking about the right to vote, right? And so that gave certain women power. Now, I'm not saying power to be the head of your household. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying out in the legal world, and I used one example instead of multiples. I said going before a judge. Because yes, many states did have the Married Women Property Act, but just because it was a right that was on paper, it was not always fully recognized. Kind of like the Emancipation Proclamation. And then as soon as that came out, Southern states came up with Black Code and redlining. And it was very difficult, whether they were poor, whether they just didn't know, or whether they were intimidated, for people who are disadvantaged to plead their case and to have the law heard for them. So, in summary, the 19th Amendment, in one aspect, gave certain groups of people, women, political power to be able to get their voices heard. Now, not as a feminist, but political power when it was needed.
Okay,
Rach,
so
you got
That
2
was
minutes
so
on the clock.
awesome. Go ahead.
So I don't understand. Again, this does not follow that because there was some universal non-enforcement of certain types of laws, even if you're talking about the Married Women's Property Act or any other similar thing, that would apply to everyone, not just women. So even right now, poor men in this country who can vote and do have have representation in government, it doesn't like cure the problem of non-enforcement of a law. And furthermore, like this is missing the whole point completely.
I don't think
Women,
so.
even if women can't vote, they still have representation. Okay, so here's a good example.
If they have a good husband.
Okay, Sharon, it's my 2 minutes. So if I live in Ohio right now and I did not vote for the governor of Ohio, I still have representation in my state. It might not be the guy I picked, but I still have representation. All the people in this country who did not vote for Donald Trump still have representation through their president, even if they did not vote for him. So again, this is kind of just a non sequitur. Now, I'd like to discuss why it is that women should be able to vote the same as a man. If so, how about this? Should women have to have the same duties as men in order to enjoy the same rights as men? That's a simple question.
No,
Why not?
because we are created equally, but we have different traits and different leanings and different aspirations and different capabilities and different
Yes.
interests, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
So why, if we don't have the same duties as men, why should we have the same rights? Make the case to me. We're in a court of law and you want...
doesn't mean, just because I don't have the same duty does not mean what I'm bringing to the table is of any lesser value and is not needed. I mean, God did not make Adam and just Adam alone, but he brought alongside Adam Eve as a helpmate.
Of course.
And he didn't take the bone from Adam's foot, nor did he take it from Adam's head. He took the bone from his rib, from his side, so that we can walk equally. But that still does not have anything to do with, as I stated in my opening statement, about first principle. I earnestly believe that that there is a God in heaven, that
But
we
you're
are all
just, okay,
created equally.
you're going off again on a long tangent and you're restating to me what you believe. You're saying, I believe because I believe because I believe. I'm asking you, and I know you're not a debater. I think you're probably a great public speaker.
I am a debater. Have you Googled me? I'm a great debater. You should
Okay,
have saw me on
well,
stage.
and
Yes.
then in that case, I'm surprised. Then I'll hold you to a higher standard. That's fair. If you're a great debater, then I expect you to understand that simply restating your position is not an argument. You have to tell me why, if we do not expect the same duties out of women as we do men, specifically in regards to governing this nation, if women do not have to sign up for the selective service, they do not have to defend the borders, they do not have to go to war, they do not have to build the infrastructure, all things that men as a monolith have to do, or we don't have a country. Why do we deserve the same rights as men?
Are the only rights that men have, or just to or the only duty men have is just to secure the border? That's the only one you keep talking about.
No, I just mentioned several. They build the
With
infrastructure of this
Okay.
country, meaning
hmm
roads,
And so
bridges,
women don't do
buildings.
it, and so women don't
No,
participate in that. So there are no
no.
engineers. So the woman I saw out here on the street,
There are
controlling
exceptions. 90
that thing, right? I
over
know percentages. I know.
90% of infrastructure is still built by men. And same thing
Yes,
again and again. We'll go back to my I'm just pointing out how things work. We shouldn't be arguing over. We agree on how things work. Only men can do these things. When we're talking about the government, we have to say, what are the duties and responsibilities of the government? What things does the government do? And the things the government is supposed to do is defend the nation, enforce its laws, and build its infrastructure. That's what it's for. And
right.
only men can do that.
And I
Women can't
disagree
do
with
that,
that.
and women
And I
don't do
disagree
that.
with that. And I guess what we're having a
I don't want to,
disconnect, and
yeah.
what is that I
But you need
don't
an
believe that that's
argument,
the
though.
only thing that the government does. And like I said at the very beginning, the government job is one fold. That is to secure my rights. It is not
What
everything else that we have allowed it to become. And what are my rights? And
what
women
is a
participate
right,
in those
Kathy?
rights.
What is a
Life,
right?
life,
Life is a right?
liberty, yes. I believe I
Okay.
have the right to live. I
So
believe
you're
that,
against
and
the
you
death
find it,
penalty.
in the Declaration of Independence as well.
I know,
So
but
yes, I do
what
believe
is
I
a
have
right?
a
Not
right.
I'm
I
not asking
believe,
you to
okay.
list rights.
Here's
I'm asking you to
here's
define
right.
what a right is.
I have the right to
It's more
No,
of a
not list
definitional
the
question,
rights.
Kathy.
Yeah.
So,
Not
like,
list the rights.
you
definitionally,
define
Now,
it.
what
what
is a
is?
right?
You define it because I'm telling you what it is.
I would say that a right is an entitlement absent duty.
Okay. An entitlement absent duty. I would agree with that. Right? Life, liberty. Now, I don't have to do anything. I just have this right to life.
Okay.
Or, you know what? Or maybe I go to the First Amendment, freedom of religion, which is really freedom of conscience to think my own thought, the freedom of speech, right? I don't have a duty. I don't owe you anything to do it, but can I speak? Or can I only speak if I'm strong enough to beat Jacob? And if I'm not, then I lose
Okay.
that right
But
too.
but
Or
since
the
you
right
agree,
to, now
okay.
you asked me what a right is. So
Yeah, but
freedom
now
of,
you're doing the thing where you wander off into the woods
no,
again
I'm
and
not
start
wandering
talking.
anywhere. I think,
You have to make
again,
an
there's a
argument
lot
though,
of
Kathy. You gotta,
fallacies in what
Kathy,
it
I
is that
love you.
you're
So,
You're a
saying.
great lady, but you gotta make an argument. You gotta make an
Well,
argument. You gotta
listen,
stick
you know
to the
what? I'm
topic.
sorry. Listen. If you don't like the way, now you can ask me a question. I'm going to answer the question in the manner in which I want to
Sure.
answer that question. And I'm sure if we
Well,
were
I've
going
been
out into
trying.
the marketplace of ideas, you have to be able to talk to people. And if I don't fall perfectly within your rigid box of how I'm supposed to answer a question, that's more of a you problem than it is me. I'm
Well,
perfectly
we do have
fine
to move the
with
debate on at
talking
some
to
point,
you.
though, in terms of asking questions and getting responses and
Well,
what have
and
you. So, if
you've been asking,
when the moderator speaks, Kathy, when the moderator speaks, you
you're
do have to
right.
be quiet. So, if there is a question being asked, we do want to address it. We don't want to
Mhm.
necessarily be answering the question with a question. So, Rachel, do you want to just restate the question
yes,
that you
I'll
had
try
again
one
there,
more
and
time.
then?
When it comes to government, we are saddling only men with the duties of, as I've said it so many times, all the things the government does, defending the borders, building the nation, defending it from enemies, foreign and domestic. Only men are saddled with that duty, which is why women are not required to sign up for the draft when they turn 18 and men are. And if men don't do that, they lose their right to vote. If men commit a crime, they lose their right to vote. So voting isn't like an inherent God-given right that can't be rescinded. It can get rescinded and does get rescinded all the time. If you're in the country illegally, you don't have a right. If you're under 18, you don't have the right to vote. If you commit crimes or do other things, voting fraud, you can't vote. Okay, so there's
Mhm.
this is the case. If only men are expected to fulfill the duties of government, why do women have the same rights as men in governing? That is not logical. And it's not just. That's the crux of my opening, was to say, this is injustice to men, to say to men, we're going to saddle you with all the duties of building and defending and maintaining this nation, but we're going to grant equal political enfranchisement to half of the population that has no such duty. Why is that just and fair?
Okay. I'm only bringing this up because you brought it up several times. That was very long-winded. Now, I would have never brought that up except the fact that you brought it up. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay. So again, to your point, I disagree. It's difficult to answer a question when I completely disagree with your premise that only men, these absolute statements, can do something, or that the only thing the government is to do is, or that the only thing the government is called to do is something that requires brute force. I disagree with that. And I don't think that that has anything to do with whether or not, because I guess what you're missing from what I'm saying is that these rights, the government is not doing me a favor by ratifying and maintaining the 19th Amendment. It's my right. And it's my right, not just because I said it's my right, our founding fathers said it's my right, because this is how the government derives its powers. The government has no power unless the consent of the governed. I'm a part of the governed. And for example, if taxation without representation, because they had representation, the colonists, you made this statement a few moments ago that you're in Ohio and you still have representation, even if you're not voting for that representation. Well, the colonists had representation, but they had no voice in who got to represent them. And they earnestly believe, so much so that they sparked the birth of a whole nation out of it and their rebellion, that if they don't have a voice in who gets to represent them, and yes, women were on that boat too, tearing up stuff and throwing the tea into the harbor, fighting, shooting. Yes, there are many stories of women. You should look at that. But again, they thought it was such tyranny not to have a voice that they sparked the birth of a whole nation. And what I'm saying, that is an established principle. And by 1913, women were being taxed on their property and on their earnings with no voice. And if it applies to men, it should apply to women. But going back to what you said, I disagree with your premise that the only thing government does is dealing with brute force. And because I may not be able to compete with brute force, then I have no reason to expect anything. And lastly, it goes back, I think we're missing shifts because you're trying to get me to explain why the government needs to give me something that is already mine. The government doesn't give me these rights. The government recognizes I have these rights, and then the government secures these rights because there are bullies out here who want to infringe upon my rights that the government didn't give me.
Okay, so first of all, this is something Americans love to repeat because it sounds really good, but you don't have rights.
I do.
Please don't interrupt when it's my turn.
Okay.
If that were the case, why in all of ancient Christendom, if the Christian God that you and I both believe in grants us rights, they're not in the Bible, they're nowhere in church canon law, they did not exist for all of Christendom until the Enlightenment, okay? No medieval Christian peasants believed that they had God-given rights to have a voice in governance and all that. This is, as I outlined in my opening, that's a post-Enlightenment idea. It's not a Christian idea. It's a nice thing to say. It falls flat on its face and you can't defend it. If you can defend and not just continue to restate, but explain to me how you can prove that you have rights given to you by God that the government must recognize and that men must enforce on your behalf, I would love to hear it because you've still never answered to that point. The
Okay.
second point I'll
I
make,
have, oh, I'm
this,
sorry.
I've still got a minute here.
Mhm.
The other point I want to make in what you just said is that you're basically arguing for women's privilege because you're saying, no, women shouldn't have to sign up for the draft. They shouldn't
I didn't
have
say,
to.
I didn't say that.
They,
We have to let Rach get through her point. Another minute on the clock here, Rach.
when I kept asking, why should we have the same rights as men when we don't have the same duties when it comes to government? Yes, there are ancillary things the government does, but the primary purpose of government, according to our Constitution, is to protect persons and property. Women can't do it. You still haven't told me why they should have an equal say, even though that's the case. You just say, I disagree. You're just restating your argument again. And then if this is the case, and if the founders wanted everyone to have a say in government, why didn't they set our nation up that way? Why did they not give women the vote right away? If that's what they intended, and that was the premise of the founding and the thing our nation was built on, why could only a small percentage of either men or women vote at the founding?
All right, so
Okay.
we can either go in a direction where, Kathy, you address the questions that Rachel's asking, but at some point, you did say before you haven't stated your argument yet, Kathy. At some point, if you did want to lay out your argument, premise form, and have Rachel respond to the argument, we can do that as well, but it's your time. You've got 2 minutes on the clock. You can do either.
Okay. One question, I only heard really one question, and that was, how can I prove to you that I have rights? Is that what you said?
That God has granted you rights and that the government made of men has an obligation to enforce those on your behalf.
Okay.
When that's
here it is.
never been the case in all of Christian history until
Okay. Because
100
you
years ago.
know our nation is a constitutional republic, right?
Right.
Right, exactly. So what's the opposite? So what's a government
But
that
you didn't
is
have
under
rights
God?
in this. You didn't
Wait,
have rights
no,
under this
wait,
constitutional
one
republic
moment,
for
one
150
moment,
years.
one moment. I mean, let me just answer your first question. How do I have rights? Where did these rights come from? Who said I have rights? Something somewhere in there is your question. Here it is. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created
Men.
equal.
Doesn't say
You
people.
know that's universal, but
No,
I will
that's
continue.
demonstrated.
That they
You have to
they
prove that,
are
Kathy.
endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Not
That
voting.
to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just
Men.
powers from the consent of the governed. And now everyone, a Federalist paper, I can actually go over here and pull out the Federalist paper. They actually
If
talk
that
about
I've read the
universal,
Federalist
the
papers.
universal aspect of man is not just women. And
You
know
have
what?
to
I mean, Abigail,
demonstrate
I
that.
actually
But
have her letters.
This
Now,
is how you debate.
now,
How to
So-
demonstrate.
now you asked me to not talk during my 2 minutes.
Sure.
And I
Fair.
said I
fair.
would not. And so now
Fair.
I'm talking. You asked me the question, who gave me these rights as a woman? I just read to you. Now you can either accept it or not accept it. I'm perfectly fine with either one. But here it is, because this is this nation, this country does not exist apart from the US Constitution. So if you tell me that I have to rip up the US Constitution and come over here and find you an answer that you will agree with, that just doesn't work that way. We're specifically talking about why should women vote in the United States? And I'm telling you, the framework of the Constitution starts right here. And so who gave me these rights? First of all, who acknowledges that I have these rights? God gave me these rights. I just read it. The government did not do me a favor. The government simply recognized what already is.
Okay.
I forgot what your other question was. It was kind of long.
So
and hidden in
you what you just did, and this is something a lot of people don't understand about debate. Simply
Okay.
asserting your position is not the same thing as making an argument. You just said it is because it is. And I can demonstrate
No,
that your
that's
claim,
not what I said.
I can demonstrate that you are incorrect. Here's how
Okay.
I can demonstrate it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If when the founders said in the Declaration, by the way, that's not the Constitution, that's just the Declaration of Independence.
And I said that.
Okay.
This is the Declaration of Independence.
It says
that was the framework for the
men.
Constitution.
It says men.
Do you want me to
It's
get up and get
referring to
my
men, and
Federalist
I can.
book?
Yes,
and
and I
show
can,
you what they
well, I
said
can
about the word
demonstrate that
men?
you're wrong. I can
Okay, go ahead.
easily demonstrate that you're wrong
Okay.
because they did not give women the vote when they set up the system. And in the law of the land at the time, in colonial law and early American law, women were represented by their husbands. The
Mhm.
husband was the representative. So the husband voted. They didn't think women and children were ever going to be voting. They didn't have to put that in the documents because in the phronema, the mindset of the founders, that wasn't a thing. You wouldn't put that in there because it was as absurd as writing a law saying two gay men can't get married and rent some lady's womb to have a baby. They weren't even thinking that way at the time because women were the property of men. And when you got married, you were your husband was your keeper and he was your representative. Women did not have a say in governance for all of human history. This is a brand new idea. That's how I can prove the founders did not intend for universal suffrage or for females to have votes. They
You did
didn't give
not
it to
prove
them.
it,
They
Rachel.
intended
Rachel,
it.
just
It
because you
proves
said
it
it did
because
not
they
prove
would have
it.
given it to them.
Just because
Yeah.
you said that does not prove that. So
Why
you
didn't
don't
they
have
do it
any
then?
proof.
Why
Well,
didn't they do it?
well, why didn't they free Black people?
Because they didn't think that Black people were the same as the people who owned them
So
at the
should
time.
we
I'm not saying that's
should we
right,
reset? I know. I
but
know you're not, Rachel.
it's
Rachel,
your
I know you. Wait
argument.
one moment, Rachel. Allow me. So I know you're not saying that, and I'm not inferring it whatsoever. However, they did not. You said they did not give women the right to vote. It wasn't a
Mhm.
thing for women to vote.
Right.
So and likewise, it wasn't. Black people were not free. They did not state it explicitly in the document, in the Declaration or the U.S. Constitution. So are you saying because they did not state it at that time, then we need to also rescind the 14th Amendment?
No, what I'm saying is that
Okay,
you
but okay,
what let me
so now
explain.
what
No,
you're
let me
doing, so now
explain.
what you're doing again, as you
Oh God.
did the
This is
first hour, is you're being
it's
very
Kathy, it's
spotty.
your
Is
argument. I
you're
can't
being
I
very
can't.
spotty. I
I'm
mean,
not I don't even
it's
know
not
what
being
spotty means. What
we
is I'm gonna
we
lose my
do
temper
we
at
do
this
have to
point.
let, especially when the accusation is made, we do have to let the person actually respond to the accusation and say what they meant. It's not like a yes no sort of like
Okay.
Yeah.
political debate sort of thing.
Kathy,
It's
Kathy, it's your argument that the founders intended for women to vote. I'm not saying we should do what the founders said. That's your position, okay? I personally not a fan of the American system, not a fan of the Constitution, but in the framework of this debate, it is your position that the founders intended for women to have votes. It just took us a long time to get to the point where we properly recognized it. That's your argument. And my critique of your argument is that if that were the case, they could have simply set it up that way at the beginning and they didn't. And no, I'm not saying we should therefore rescind the 14th. I'm saying because it's not my argument. My argument isn't do whatever the founders did and keep it that way forever. Your argument is this was the position of the founders and this was what they wanted. And all I'm doing is simply refuting that argument of yours.
Thank you. And I guess what I'm saying is that I disagree with your retort or your response to what it is, and it's very much the same of what you did in the first hour when you stated your position. Is that you throw out a premise and you say you're going to give me proof, and what you give me are just your opinions and subjective reasoning, and I disagree with all of that.
Okay, well, when reviews of this debate come out, people are going to once again point out that that's not the case. I'm
Okay.
saying you're the one making the subjective claim that cannot be proven. You're saying, well, they
How?
didn't give, you're
No,
saying they didn't,
that's not true.
the founders did
You
not give
said to
everyone
me,
a vote.
you asked me, how do I have rights? Who gave me these rights? Who said I have these rights? That's what you said. And
Yeah.
I picked up the Declaration of
It
Independence
says
and
then.
I read what our founding fathers said of the opinion.
And I
Who
explained
said
to
I
you,
have these rights? Now, I explained to you early at the opening, and I've explained it a couple of times already, that the government did not give me these rights. What the government did in securing these rights, before they can secure them, they have to acknowledge them.
why did it take 150 years to acknowledge your right?
Well, why did it take until 1863 for them to free Black people with the
Because
Emancipation
that was
Proclamation?
because that was not what the founders wanted. That was not how the Constitution was written, and they did not want slaves voting, and they did not consider them citizens. And it's the same
And
thing with
then
women.
to
So
say,
if you
are you
then
saying we
you
should
should
rescind it?
say, so if you don't want to do what the founders framed, you should abandon your argument that the founders wanted all of us to have equal rights. They didn't, Kathy. The fact of the matter is that they didn't. Now, that's not my argument. You're the one saying the founders wanted everyone to have equal rights. And I'm saying obviously not, because they did not grant voting rights to everyone. They did not grant the same rights to everyone.
But you know what they did grant? A process for future generations to be able to open up the document, open up the Constitution, and to make revisions, right? Now,
That's true.
they're not perfect. And there was a reason. I actually understand the reason behind. I'm right here in Philadelphia. I've been down to this area more time than I can count, when at the Continental Congress and then over at the Liberty Hall itself. But I understand why they didn't. It was a rigorous debate. I understand why they didn't free Black people at the time. Disagree with it completely, since I have the blood of slaves coursing through my veins. However, I understand what it is that they did and the process that they created. They didn't lock up the U.S. Constitution and say, this is it. It is perfect. No one can touch it. And so, as I said earlier, we have been on a 250-year long march of fulfilling the promises that they declared in the Declaration. And for me, with first principles, I came to this debate. I'm coming to this debate based on the premise, because again, as I said earlier, the Constitution, the country doesn't exist apart from it. This country, as we know it, only exists within the frameworks of the Constitution. You start unraveling the premise, being that there is a God who has given us rights, and these rights did not come from the government. You begin to unravel the very country itself.
Okay. So I would respond by saying, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there, actually. And what you really admitted was, no, we should not stick strictly to the constitutional framework that existed at the very beginning of the nation. So you have kind of abandoned this argument and realized
I never
that
had that argument. I was asking you the question because you said they didn't give it to women at the start, and I said they didn't give men the right to own property. Men who didn't have property couldn't vote. So that wasn't my argument. I'm just telling you how your argument doesn't follow logic. It misses a whole lot of steps in between. Can we move on to another thought?
Well, sure, but what you just described was progressivism. What you described was what the left progressive side believes, which is that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. It's subject to change over time.
That's not what I said.
It changes. You just described it. It changes over time, and it fulfills the will of the people over time as the will of the people shifts and as things change, because we are so far from what the founders framed.
I agree.
And you think that's good. Now, I'm not making the argument either way.
I didn't say that was good.
I didn't say
that was good. I did not say that was good.
What I said is
that our founding fathers, at the time that they wrote this, they created a process that allows future generations to be able to responsibly go back in and interpret the words, and then
they did. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Promising. But for example, the Constitution did not.
I gotta talk too. I gotta be able to talk to. So you're right. They created a process by which leftists can argue that women should have abortion on demand and that gays should be able to get married and all these other things. That is correct, which is why I'm not a constitutionalist. I'm not a big fan of the American system. I think it's deeply flawed. However, let's get back to women voting. Would you like to talk? You said you want to bring up something, so I want to give you the opportunity to bring up an argument about women voting and why women deserve to vote the same as men, or why who should vote and why.
And let me just say, I did not say, and I did not sign up to say why women should vote just like men. I came on to talk about why women should vote, period, right? The other thing, when you say we're so far removed, I agree with you 100%. It pains my heart to see what is happening to our country. It truly pains my heart. I love this country. I made a conscious decision that I will lay my life down for this country when I joined the military. I love it. And I actually am a constitutionalist in that I have deep respect for what our founding fathers put together. And I'm very grateful to be in this country. I love it. When you were talking, I was thinking about something I heard Charlie Kirk say a long time ago. He said, freedom is tough. He said, freedom requires a lot of work. I had another friend who just said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And so and again, I said this in the opening, I agree with you. Our country is sick, but I do not believe that the prescription we should prescribe to the sick patient is stripping rights away. Instead, I think, as I said before, we have an obligation to do exactly what you and I are doing right now, which is having a conversation. And yeah. I'm so grateful to you for it. And you know what? And conversations are tough. They get heated. Yeah, People's feelings get hurt. But I have nothing but respect for you. Again,
well,
I cannot say enough how much
you've done a lot of great things in your
appreciate
life, and you're a great lady. You're really a great lady. Everything that I've seen from you and heard from you is good stuff. And I think that where I stopped buying into the America's the greatest and our Constitution is the best and our form of government is the best is when I realized I don't believe there's such a thing as the will of the people. Why do I not think that? Because that implies that there is some kind of collective hive mind in which we all share morals, values, an idea, a shared moral fabric, and we don't anymore. And the reason we don't anymore, I think the biggest reason we don't anymore is because we went with this like radical individual liberty stuff, and we liberated women from men, which was a terrible idea. We split up families. We let any person who wants to come into the country come in, and if they put their foot on the magic dirt, they're magically an American. We don't have a shared culture. We don't have a shared language. We don't have a shared religion anymore. So this whole idea that we can go out there and with the power of the mic and with these conversations that it will fix our system of government, that I don't believe. Now, I know that's cynical. I wish I thought it was different, but I think that most people, if you have universal suffrage, the biggest problem is everyone votes in their own self-interest. And for most of the people out there, that's going to be to take money from other people. They're going to vote for the government to take money from someone else and give it to them. They're going to vote. Women are going to vote to have more power than men, especially in places like family court. Women are never going to vote to, force themselves to sign up for the draft or have all the same duties and responsibilities men have. They're going to, everybody's going to do this. So I would love it if I thought that we could all just turn the tide by not changing the government. I think that it's not going to last. But that aside, the reason
allow me to just comment.
The women's suffrage thing, though, and I think that
I know, but I
just value liberty, though, Kathy. You're never going to convince women to vote for liberty because it's risky. Like you said, it's hard. It takes work. It takes vigilance. It takes risk. Women don't like that, and there's a reason. The way that we are designed by the Lord to be mothers and to take care of tiny babies and children, we want to make sure everybody gets something to eat. Everybody has an equal amount of food, that everybody's warm and cozy and has health care and all these things. And this is why I opened with, if women didn't vote, we wouldn't be battling things like gay marriage and trans rights and Obamacare and the welfare state and open borders. Those are all things that are a manipulation of women's maternal instinct. And I know you just disagree with that and you think we can educate them out of that.
No.
To the extent that women have had more education and more political enfranchisement, I actually have a graph here that I could bring up, but women have gone further left over the last 100 years. The more college we give them, the more education, the more access to information they have, and the more involvement in politics that women have, the further left they go, because they see the government as a means by which to make everything fair and equal and cozy for everyone. Men don't look at it that way. And that's because men understand force and men understand what it takes to build and maintain and defend a nation. And women don't. And we never will get that. We will never truly understand that because we're not men.
Okay. I do not disagree with a lot of what you said there. I am going to double click on the things that I do disagree with. But yeah, I'm not here to defend feminism and all of their baked in lies. I too believe feminism has done a tremendous disjustice to our country, to our family, to the nation, to our government. I'm right there with you, right? I think it has betrayed women. I think women signed up for one thing, and now we're watching a bunch of 38 and 40-year-old women saying, "Wait a minute, I did everything my professor told me to do," and it's not working out well for them. So you and I are right there. Absolutely. A couple of things, however, that I do want to get into. You said about, again, that because of our maternal instincts, we are susceptible to being manipulated. I don't have any graphs to show on women being manipulated, but I wouldn't be hard pressed to believe that women, I know I am, right? Very caring, very thoughtful. I want to help people. You take your kids outside. You want everyone to be equal, right?
Yeah.
To that extent. So I get what you're saying. But at the same time, coverture, for example, right? Again, a married woman, when she gets married, she loses her own legal individual identity, and she assumes the legal identity of her husband. And that is what you're proposing, but by a different name, right? That women no longer vote, and that is just one household, and the male gets to make that vote. And the problem with that for me is that you're treating women as one monolithic blob, as if we are not undifferentiated souls, right? Each woman comes to the table with different experiences, different background, different ups and downs. So we're not all the same. And so the problem is not all women are the problem, as you and I would define the problem, right? The leftists, the lunatics. All women are not the problem. It's very specific unmarried single women who are the problem. And I was just looking up, that it's unmarried women, according to 2024 NBC, CNN, some of those exit polls, non-married women voted upwards of 61% for Kamala Harris. Married women actually vote more in line with their married husbands. So if you remove my right to vote, now you just have a bunch of lunatic single women out here voting, because as it stands right now, we cancel out the loonies, right? But if, as a married woman, I lose my right to vote and now it's just my husband, you've actually done more harm to our cause, because my vote no longer matters. But there's a whole population of women out here who are single, who don't have a male covering, who will continue to vote. And that harms us.
But see, I'm not arguing for only married women to not vote. I'm saying no women voting at all, married or not married.
So how would the married woman get her vote registered?
Her husband votes on her behalf.
I'm saying the unmarried woman. How did the unmarried woman gets her voice registered?
She doesn't. And I'm saying I don't think women deserve equal voice in the governance of this nation, because they are not capable of doing the duties of the government. As I think that that's a solid argument. I don't think there's any way around it. I don't think there's really anything necessary. I can talk about all kinds of other things. We can talk about female voting records and the fact that the fastest way to get rid of the liberty and freedom you love so much is to hand it over to women and let them vote. But the anti-suffragists argued the same thing, kind of what you're saying here. They said, look, by giving women the vote, we're just going to vote alongside our husbands. So you're just doubling the electorate and you don't gain anything. But what they they kind of foresaw this to a point, but they didn't know we were going to have nationwide no-fault divorce. They didn't know that technology was going to come to a point where the government was going to hand women phony baloney HR jobs, like the she economy. If you look at the jobs women do in the economy now, and the fact that they're making more money than men doing completely, mostly non-essential jobs. They do some essential jobs, but it's like a 70% of women's jobs are non-essential, and they get paid a lot for this. We've fundamentally transformed the economy in a way that nobody saw coming, certainly not in 1920 or before. And so they didn't know we'd have this giant cohort of young women who go off to Marxist indoctrination camps, colleges, which were captured by Marxist feminist standpoint theory in the 70s with the invention of gender studies, and that they were going to become radicalized Bolsheviks who were going to go out in the street and start fighting ICE agents against deporting criminal illegal aliens. Okay. They didn't see, they thought that women in the future would be like the sane women of the past who were almost always married and almost always voted alongside their husband. But that's not where we are now. And women's suffrage is to blame for that. We wouldn't have no-fault divorce. We wouldn't have
I don't think women's
gender
suffrage
studies
is to blame for that. What I believe is to blame for that is, again, freedom is tough. You got to read, you got to go vote, you got to stay involved, you got to know what's going on.
But that's why I'm not a libertarian.
And a lot of people don't want to do that, right? And so we have to do better. Yes, I mean, Black people vote more in line with Democrats than women. So, I mean, again, it's that slippery slope in the logic that if the problem is women are voting with these, lunatic Democrats and leftists, and that's the reason why we can't trust them with the ballot, then for me, the next thought is, stage 2 thinking is, well, then what about Black people? They vote even more so with these lunatics over here, right? Now, of course, women, specifically white women, are a little bit more radical when you start double clicking even on the groups, right? Like they're even more partisan. No matter what the issue is.
Single white liberal women are a problem.
Horrible. Horrible. I say it all the time. Like, what in the world? But again, I guess my mind goes to not, let me use the government to take away a right from people. No, my thought goes to, well, what can I do? What can we do? And, one of the things is, like I said, before it was cool, I was telling everybody on national TV, a man cannot be a woman. And this is when everybody was ducking and dodging that question. Yeah. And I think it requires courage. I think it requires people to read and to understand and to do what you and I are doing. Take a cup of coffee to your neighbor and have a conversation, right, about something other than the weather. But here's another solution. I think, and this goes to, I'm sure you will probably agree with this. I don't know if you did it. I think you did. But staying at home, mothers, raising your children, right? And that was very challenging. It wasn't challenging once the light bulb came to me, but it wasn't easy. I mean, I was going to be the next CEO of the Fortune 500 company. I was on that track. And then I had a baby. And all of a sudden I realized some person at a daycare sees my child more than I see my child.
Yes.
And that
I had the same experience.
How am I going to impart my values on my child if I get 2 hours every day with my baby, right? Someone else who's spending 22 hours with my child is going to be able to determine that, right? And so I thought I step out of corporate America, work in the stay at home, and then when my kid turns 5, I'll put them on that little yellow bus and let them go off, right? And then I can get back to my life. Lo and behold, 5 years later, I saw 15 years ago what most people are just now waking up to. And this is with the whole alphabet mafia, the LGBTQ and transgenderism and all of that foolishness. And that caused me to say, I'm going to start homeschooling our kid, right? I think that is the solution for me when I look at because I am a rugged individualist. So my first thought, my knee-jerk reaction is to say, what can I do better? What do I need to do? And what do I need to encourage others to do as well? And mothers need to come out, perhaps, maybe. Everybody's situation is different, but I would strongly encourage mothers to rethink, especially if your babies are young in this culture, to rethink your priorities and to perhaps take a look at homeschooling and raising. I think those are the solutions to the problems you
I agree with
enumerated.
everything that you said there, but what my whole job, because now that I have raised 5 whole kids into adulthood, they are grown-ups now. I homeschooled 2. I gave up what was supposed to be a bright future in academia because I wanted to stay home and raise kids, and everybody thought I was insane. So we agree on all of that completely, but what I've done for the last few years, now that I do have time, I'm a little bit of an empty nester, is I have kind of dedicated myself and my time to thinking through the problem of how do we fix this? All the things that you just talked about, all the things we've been discussing, how do we fix it? And you have to go back in our history to find out how we got here and what happened. The reason we have young women who think it's a better deal to start an OnlyFans at 18, never get married and never have kids. The reason the birth rate is well below replacement and has been for a long time is because through women's suffrage, through women's political their political endeavors, we got things like easy birth control access. We got Roe v. Wade passed for a long time, and we still are struggling with abortion and things like this. And we got the invention of things like gender studies in the schools. We started pushing the government, the federal government is the one single entity that has pushed women away from fathers and husbands and toward the government and into its arms more than anything else. And it's because of the women's lobby. The women's rights lobby, the National Association of Women Lawyers back in 1911, this was the plan. The plan was we get women's votes, women become a political bloc, we demand equal representation, and then we go to Washington and we stump for all these things. We get no-fault divorce, we get equal pay with men, we get no more shaming single moms, and you can just have babies with whoever, you can get abortions, you can be on birth control, you can have sex with everybody, and nobody can shame you. All this stuff, this giant progressive liberal baggage of women that everybody's going, what happened to women? What happened to women? All started with political equality.
No,
that's
because
where
in your book, you before 1920, you do several chapters of just talking about how all these liberal women were hooking up with lesbian relationships and multiple men and leaving their children behind. Who was it? The last one leaving her child behind?
Margaret Sanger.
Margaret Sanger. I should have known that one right off the top. Yes. Her daughter died. So that's before 1920. So they were doing things.
It's not that there weren't some, but it was not the norm. It was not socially acceptable. It was highly frowned upon. It was socially shamed, and it was less than 5% of kids growing up in a single parent household.
And I don't think that's but again, it's not the 19th Amendment fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. It's the pastor's fault. It's the culture fault, right? Like, as you said earlier, we do not, when I travel like 1,900 miles every single week for 15 months when I was running for Congress. With Vivek, I'm flying all across the nation talking to people. So yes, when I look at the political system or if I'm on Twitter, it looks like we're out, right? We might as well just hang up the Constitution and go home somewhere. But when you're on the street and you're spending that much time with people, you realize, no, it's not the people. It's the people we have voted. It's the political system itself who have become incentivized to just ignore. It's the government, actually. It's our government that is the problem, and how our legislators are incentivized, right? They're not I would be in the back room with these people when I was running for Senate, but also at the presidential level in the back room with Vivek and all these other presidential candidates. And you begin to hear and see and realize, I would see people like you and I running up to one of our elected officials and saying this, that, and the third. and they will just kind of nod. But once you walked away, the disdain, right? These people have great, especially in the Republican Party, these people have great disdain for their voters. I've never seen anything like it. Republican, not all, but most, have great disdain for their voters. But what happens if voters become more educated about the issues and understand that, you know, you don't have to be an expert to know COVID shot is probably, you may want to rethink that, right? But that's the solution, is educating and getting people, not the 19th Amendment. In your book, you list how these women were out here, hottie toddies, just all over the place doing all kinds of unspeakable things. It's not the 19th Amendment. What it is that we have a culture that has receded to the background. Churches, we need to strengthen the institutions of this nation. We need to strengthen the family, strengthen the church, strengthen communities. That's what we need to do. Not
Right.
That
Well,
was
I
essentially a closing statement. So, Rach, if you want to have a last word here, and then we'll get into some super
Sure.
chats.
Yeah, so we agree on the problems, okay? We agree on the diagnosis, we agree on the the diagnosis, but what I'm trying to say and what the book was really about was saying, yes, there was this small handful of crazy leftist feminist women who saw women's liberation and even Satanism, like openly declared Satan and Lucifer to be like their symbol of freedom against men. What happened is, unfortunately, they won. They got women to be a power block, in a political power block in this nation. And what happened as a result of that is the core rot of everything you're talking about. When you say we need to take the institutions back, you are 100% right. The university systems, the churches, the NGOs, and the government. And the reason they all got taken over by Marxist progressivist ideologues is because they had the backing of women, because they had the power of the women's lobby and everything related to it, and because this is why, like, if people don't understand, do you think the government gave women all of this free money to go to college and created gender studies in 1969 because they just really care about women, they just really want them to be educated? No, it's because they could create an indoctrination centers where they could pump their heads full of feminism and Marxist ideology and make them into good progressive foot soldiers in the culture, which is what I went on Joe Rogan to say. And by doing that, by removing women from the place where they have the most power, which is in their own families and in their own communities, and putting them in the political sphere, this is what we get. And now we are trapped in the longhouse. Now we are stuck in the longhouse where everything is from this femme-centric position of fairness and equality, and, well, why can't the gays get married? And who are you to say Dave Rubin and his husband can't pay some lady to make designer babies for them? It changed things in a way that people haven't even been able to wrap their heads around in 100 years. And I do believe 100% that we need to start walking this back. We need to have women step back into their sphere as mothers and wives and community builders and bastions of morality, which they had been before. Women were the center of the church. And we need men to fully step back into their sphere, which is as the providers, protectors, and enforcers of humankind, the ones that build and defend the nation, and that's their sphere, and they need to take it back over completely from the women. So I don't spend a lot of my time trying to convince women, not because I don't love women, not because I don't want them to understand where I'm coming from or be on board with me. I do. It's just that I need to convince the men, because the men are ultimately going to have to be the ones who put their foot down and say, ladies, we love you. And that's why we are taking the power of the vote back away. We are putting you in the place where you actually have the most influence and you are the most irreplaceable. And that is in your homes, raising your children and having babies and being a helpmeet to your husband. That's what will fix it. You're not going to fix it by educating the women, because unfortunately, to the extent that we educate them and involve them in politics, they only go further left and everything only gets worse. And the birth rate, the number one correlate around the world to falling birth rates, is women's participation in politics and higher education. I know people don't like to hear that because you're programmed with this, but women should be able to make the choice and do what they want.
I agree with you.
So that's where I'm coming
Good point
from
of
on it.
agreement there towards the end. We do have a lot to get through with the super chat, so we'll go straight into that.
Wait, I didn't
Jake,
give
a
my
good
closing
debate.
statement. It'd be like 2 seconds.
Okay, go for it.
I agree with you, Rachel. I agree with you up to rescinding the 19th Amendment. I agree. Men.
I almost had her, you guys. I almost had her.
I think men are the solution. I agree with you, Rachel. I don't spend a lot of time talking to, I don't spend a lot of time trying to convince people of anything, right? I'm going to speak my truth and you like it or you don't like it. But I think the solution is men. And I think what we're finding with men is what Adam and Eve went through. Eve was deceived. Adam was open rebellion, right? He just sat back and did nothing and just sat in the cut and allowed the woman to make all of the decisions, right? I mean, we've been dealing with this for thousands of years now. So men, get up, rise up, and be a man. That doesn't mean be a brute, obviously, which I don't infer that is what that means, but be a man, choose better, check your hormones, and don't try to sleep with everything, and be wise and thoughtful about the woman you're going to hook your wagon up to for the rest of your life, so that you pick a woman who is virtuous, who will prioritize her family. That's what Rachel did. That's what I did. I ended what could have been a different career for what I'm doing today, but I'm grateful. If I could do it again, I would. Thank you, Jay, for the opportunity to come on.
Pleasure. Well, we'll try to keep we've got a fair few super chats, so the idea here is that we'll try and keep the answers to these quite brief if you guys do have an answer for them. So JMNZZ for 50, thank you, sir, says men are legally obligated to die for the preservation of their nation, which is why voting is a right for men. Women have no legal obligation for voting, therefore it is a privilege. Without responsibility, you would lose a privilege, not a right. Any response to that one?
I agree. That was kind of my whole argument.
I disagree.
Yeah. Moorhead comes in for 20. It says, hopefully we can get Mrs. D a smoko she deserves. I don't have my soundboard. I can't be doing that. JD says, if the God you believe is unchanging, then it seems a stretch to say voting is a right when God was anything but pro-democracy, considering he installed kings, not democratic government.
I agree with that too. That's why I'm not... Sorry, guys, I'm not a democracy enjoyer.
I disagree. I mean, do you have anyone? I mean, I know I was walking into your turf with your people and all of that. Is there anyone out there who is more reasoned?
I think I make a good case, and I've trained the crew.
Yes, but this person... I did that when I walked in.
I am a monarchist, Goofy. I've said it multiple times. Why haven't you converted to a monarchist, as Christianity is a pro-monarchy religion? Yes. When Kathy was saying she thinks America's the greatest nation ever, I love America. It's my home. I love the people. Rural Americans, by the way, are my folks. You poor hillbillies. You guys are my people. I love America. But greatest nation, objectively, Byzantine Empire under the Orthodox Christians. So yeah, and my husband doesn't even go that far. I'm a little bit more based than he is.
Yeah, you are the based Wilson, the cool Wilson, and the mean Wilson.
Andrew's awesome. Listen, when it comes to politics, listen to Andrew. He's a brilliant strategist, and I listen to him all the time. So listen to Andrew. Don't listen to me. But historically, monarchy, yeah, much more stable.
JM says for 20, only women can have babies, but they have no legal obligation to do so for voting rights, even with the current birth rate crisis. This would be actual equality, and both left and right wing women would oppose this. Did you guys get that, or
what's that?
I didn't really get.
Only women can have babies, but they have no legal. I think he's saying equality would be like, look, if men are obligated to fulfill their duties to society, which is building infrastructure and protecting persons and property, that women ought to be having babies. Now, can you enforce that legally? Pretty tough to do. I don't think you probably could. Like out of purely theoretically, I do think women have a duty to produce the next generation, but I mean, we're in a position where we can't really enforce that. So,
Right. Amelia comes in and says, the only thing Kathy was able to demonstrate is she can't make or follow an argument. Another flawless Miss Rachel. Kathy, what do you think about that?
The only thing Kathy was able
Poor
to
Kathy.
demonstrate is that no, don't say poor Kathy. I am completely in.
I just mean you are on foreign turf. That's all I'm saying.
Another flawless victory. Okay. For $27.99.
20 comes in from Finn saying, question for Kathy, the debater. Can you tell us what the 3 laws of logic are?
No, not right off. I mean, I'm sure I know it, but don't know how to give it to you right off the top. Do you know what they are, Rachel?
Yeah.
What are they?
It's the law of excluded middle, the law of identity, and the law of non-contradiction.
I know those. I've heard of those.
Mookie Lee for 20 says, for Kathy, if you don't understand your opponent's argument, it doesn't automatically mean they are incorrect. Pro tip, asking questions and actually listening to the response does wonders for increasing your understanding.
Thank you, Mookie Lee. Great. I certainly take your advice from a Mookie Lee.
The Jabroni Big Time for 20 says, Rachel, why should women have the right to vote? Kathy, women can vote. Rachel, why? Kathy, women can vote. Rachel, why should they be able to? Kathy, 5 minutes if woman prattle meta nonsense. So I think the Jabroni was saying that that Kathy didn't get to an argument with voting. DJ comes in for 20 and says, this is hard to watch. It isn't a debate. This is one lady rambling.
I think he's talking about you, Rachel.
I'm pretty rambling.
Yeah.
I can talk. Okay, everybody knows I can chat. So,
Zombie comes in for 20 and says, if God grants rights, then why is it that the baby's diaper birth then why is it that baby's diaper birth, you said the right to life was given by God? Baby's diaper birth was given to God and not everybody has rights. If that is the case, also the Force Doctrine is about the collective, not individuals. Baby's diaper birth. Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. Autocorrect
20,
maybe?
I do appreciate it, Zombie. Blaine said he needs a smoko. I don't have my soundboard though. Okay. Zombie comes in for 20 and says, my last comment was meant to say to be die pre-birth, not diaper birth. Also, if all men got together and said no abortions for women, there would be no abortions for women, hence the collective. Okay. We can only dream. JD says, Kathy, are the Declaration of Independence and Constitution part of your religious canon? If not, then your justification for any rights seems fallacious.
I think Kathy is just taking the typical interpretation of our founding documents as her founding axiom. I think that's why she was saying first principles, to be fair.
Yeah. And
now my job is to destroy the founding axiom and precept that and blow it out of the water. But, that's where most Americans start. And I used to start there too.
No. And okay, if most Americans start there, that's not, if I could get up and walk over, I will pull out the Federalist Papers and walk through what our founding fathers actually, because they expounded on these rights. So, but nonetheless, continue on. This is your world.
It's Jake's world. It's Jake's beautiful channel.
Sentinel says, Kathy, can you succinctly answer why you should have the right to send a man like me to war against my will when you have zero equivalent duty to this country other than my rights?
Again, I served my country for 10 years, was accepted into officer candidate school, decided when I got married that I would choose a different priority. So I'm not sending you anywhere that I have not willingly. And you know what? I'm like, that may be a higher virtue that I willingly signed up to lay my life on the line for God and country. So I think I just may be a better person than you because you're doing it under duress. How about that?
Shots fired. Cherry Blue for 20 says, Rachel, what is the difference between a right and a privilege? By definition, is voting a right or a privilege?
I would say it's a privilege. I know it's always been framed in America as a right. I don't agree with the post-Enlightenment idea of human rights or human secularism. If you look at the documents of like the French revolutionaries, it's similar stuff. I think they start with a whole bunch of grounding axioms that I disagree with. So I think voting is a privilege. I don't think there's any right of the governed to govern. Like, I think it doesn't follow, and it's just a bare assertion.
It's not just an assertion. It's
That's an
actually in the
assert. All they did
founding
was,
documents.
yeah, but it's
Actually
like,
in the
okay,
founding
a bunch of,
documents.
yeah, but a bunch of guys got together and put this on
So
paper.
you know
So
better. So you know more than our founding fathers, Rachel.
I'm saying, no, not me,
Amazing.
not me, but historically, we've had far more stable, far less volatile systems of governance than the one we have.
No.
The-
Best country on the planet.
Objectively.
America is not perfect, but there is no one in a second place that's close.
I think
this was amazing what our founding fathers
people
did.
conflate, yes, we have the best standard of living and things like that, but it's because of technology. It's not because of our system
even
of government.
before the iPhone, I was doing, I mean, this country has been
When
amazing.
I say technology, I mean post-industrial. I mean the post-industrial revolution.
Even before.
If you took the technology we have now and you had more of a Byzantine empire structure where you had church and altar working together to keep the moral fabric. Oh yeah. With the technology, you didn't have,
that did not work well for us. Integralism did not work well for us. And I'm very grateful that at the very beginning of the First Amendment, our founding fathers started off with.
You want separation of church and state?
Absolutely. I'm
That's
not
bummer.
voting for my pastor. I would certainly not vote for a pope to be the leader of
so you
my
think
country.
That atheists should rule a nation of Christians because they'd be more fair and objective?
Well, see, because I can vote, I would vote not for that. However, let me just say, Vivek Ramaswamy, a practicing Hindu, and yet
I would never vote for him.
He behaves more like a Christian than most Christians I know. And so because there are different principles, I'm not voting for Jesus to be president. I'm not voting for my pastor to be president. And this country wasn't founded with that in mind. And instead, as Protestants, and I read your book,
I thought you said that it was for a good and moral people. How can you be good and moral without the Christian God?
Right. Well, no, I quoted that. John Adam, our Constitution made only for a moral and religious, because where do you get your sense of morality?
From religion.
Right, from religion.
And so I'm not going to vote for people who worship demons.
Well,
no matter how nice they make it sound.
And you know what? And because you have the ability to vote, you can do that. Rachel, you can.
Okay, nobody out there should be voting for people who worship demons.
Okay, whatever. But what I do know is that
whatever.
I know, but as a Protestant, I'm grateful that our founding fathers took us from underneath the thumb of the Pope or the church and accurately stated that I can have a personal relationship with God. That is what religion, if you read the Federalist paper, freedom of religion is not freedom to be a Baptist or a Catholic, but freedom to be freedom of conscience, that I can communicate to God, God can communicate to me, and I can make decisions on how I want to live my life. Now, that's not unrestrained because we have social contracts in this country of what the guardrails would be.
That's very progressive. What do you think about the fact that almost all of the states originally had state religions? That it was just not, they didn't want a federally established religion, but the states were definitely allowed. You were allowed to have a Presbyterian state or a Lutheran state. I mean, that was in the founding.
I mean, yeah, no, it's not yes, in the colonies, absolutely. I'm so sure you had a lot of that. with the different, people were leaving England and coming here, and the breaks and this, what do you call them, schisms. So yes, you had various iterations, but and the documents itself, the framing of the country is very different, and I'm grateful that they framed it in the manner that they did.
Well, Relian came in and asked Kathy, how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast this morning, Kathy?
I don't know what that means. Are you related to Rachel? What kind of logic is this?
I think he's asking.
How would
just
you feel if you didn't
Yeah.
have breakfast today, Kathy? You guys can subscribe if you want to know more about me by going to my Substack. Go to Substack at Kathy Barnette, or find me on Twitter at Kathy4Truth.
Brian Shapiro comes in and says, Kathy, we need to see you debate Brian Shapiro, who speaks about himself in like first person like that, and says it would be a good debate. Would you debate Brian Shapiro, Kathy? Do you know who Brian Shapiro is?
I don't. Who's Brian Shapiro?
He's a very annoying liberal guy with a syndicated radio show though in Las Vegas, but he's a liberal, and you should go and debate him.
You should, Kathy. I think you'd beat the pants off Brian Shapiro.
Will you prep me, Rachel?
Sure. Sure,
he only speaks about Trump though. He's Trump deranged, and that's all he ever speaks about.
Yes, so my favorite topic.
Oh, then you actually should. You actually should.
Brian himself, is that who asked the question?
No, it's somebody kind of making fun of him. But honestly, I would like to see you debate Brian Shapiro, because I think you'd do really well.
I'd cover it for sure. Not one step back. Crucible wins again. Cheers. I don't know if Brian's allowed back on my channel, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, composition. Kathy, as an officer, what would you tell my family after sending me to die while sitting behind a desk?
Oh my goodness,
Kathy kind of.
What don't you understand? I mean, I served. Jake, did you serve in the U.S. military?
I'm Australian.
Oh, Rachel, did you serve in the U.S. military?
No.
Okay, people, out of the three of us, I put my life on the line for you. So no more.
I honestly do respect that a lot, Kathy. But if it were up to me, we would have 0 women in the military unless they were strictly in support roles.
It was so. I mean,
were you like what was your MOS? What was your MOS?
I was in finance. As a young girl growing up on a pig farm in Southern Alabama, dire poverty. It gave me opportunities. It allowed me to be able to claw my way from underneath a rock and to see the world from a different perspective, and to begin to just, I had very little of a foundation growing up. And so I'm very grateful for my time in the military. If it wasn't for, these legislators, I mean, I've never seen a Republican, quite frankly, who didn't see a war they didn't like. So if it wasn't for that, I would greatly encourage young people to go into the military.
But so you weren't like in a combat role though?
No.
Okay.
No. But but I tell you, there's no way faster to demoralize those who are on the front line if they're not getting paid or if money is not going to their family. So every person in the military.
I'm okay with women doing support stuff. Women have always done like combat, medic, nursing type of jobs, cooks, all the like support roles I think is fine. I just don't want women in combat whatsoever. And I don't think they should be in like basic training with men and stuff like that. I think it's bad for the men, but
basic training is generally separate. But when you start training in your MOS, now you go to a school and you have men and women, going to school to learn whatever trade that they're going to, or whatever job MOS they're going to do in the military. But women, I trained, it had a really great score. I know you are into the Second Amendment. I'm very much into the Second Amendment, and I got it from the military. But I had to train to know how to do exactly what a man would do if we came under attack. And so, again, I enjoyed every aspect of being in the military.
Cool. All right. Well, moving on. the guy who said before about sending to war, Sentinel Isaiah said, volunteering to serve is not the same as being forced against your will. Can you actually answer the question? And then some colorful language.
Well, I said earlier, I'm better because I'm a better person because I actually volunteered to put my life on the line. So if we're looking to see what is better, so what is the actual question? Can you actually answer the question rather than obfuscating away from it like a coward?
It was
Okay.
why should you have to send men like me to the
No,
military?
volunteering to serve is not the same as being forced into war against your will. There is no question there. But nonetheless, I'm going to assume your question is why is it bad? Okay, I don't know. Vote. Vote for, get behind a particular men, get behind a particular candidate who will rescind that. Because I would love that. I have a son, a 20-year-old son, and it pained me. I literally called a lawyer to see if there was any way that he would not have to automatically sign up. So I'm not trying to send anyone anywhere. So I don't know what the question is about. But again, to your point, I think I'm better if the only reason why you go and fight for your country is because someone has to drag you off kicking and screaming, whereas I volunteered. So I think that makes me a little bit better.
All righty. Diezenauer for 20 says, "Oh, Kathy, how would you feel if we tied the vote to military service and signing up for selective service?"
I agree. I think, again, my whole premise is, Vivek used to say, the solution to bad speech is not less speech, but it's more speech. And the solution to bad voting, ignorant people, uninformed electorate is not stripping away voting rights, but it is to teach them, get them out there on the field. And so, yes, I absolutely agree I would not be opposed to requiring before, once you turn 18, that you have had to have taken a citizenship test. I mean, it's a basic test. You should know what's in it. I've taken it. And so you should do it. And if you take that, you have the right to vote because it helps you to understand what kind of government we have, who we are as a nation, what we believe, the values and all of that. So I think any way to better educate the voters is always a good thing. And if they, if they're bad at testing, okay, then do some kind of involve yourself in some kind of civic service, whether that's volunteering with the fire department or signing up for a tour of duty. Yes, I'm going to always vote yes for people to become better informed about what kind of government we have.
Yeah, I was on a podcast the other night, and one of the females on the podcast didn't know what country was below the United States, and she lived in San Diego. So I think you should have some rudimentary understanding of your surroundings, I guess. But Peter White said for 20, what was your job title, MOS in the military? To Kathy, you said finance.
71 Lima.
Is that a title, is it, or what does that mean?
Well, yeah, administrative.
Zombie said for 20, I would say that Rachel knows better than the forefathers. It's a little thing called hindsight. Also, the MOS where you was USMC.
Yeah,
where
I already
you
said it.
Right. Okay, we got another one asking for the MOS, but that's been answered already. What does MOS mean?
My job title, military. I don't know what the actual, I forgot what the OS is, but it's your job title.
Another one asking for the MOS. Love the story how she managed to see the inside of foxholes and lead with the. Did you do any gun training?
I did not lead
Kathy?
men. Oh well, no. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Did you do any training with the guns?
Yes, everyone has to. You're in the military, and yeah. So yeah, yes, I did lead men when I went to what is it? Not officer training school, but what is it called? I can't even remember. It's late. I can't remember, but when you want to become, I can't remember, but yes, I did.
Justin says, if sacrificing women's vote were to guarantee the end or the reversal of feminist brain rot across Western Christendom, would you make that sacrifice, Kathy?
Ooh, I'll be tempted. Like, what are you saying? No more. I mean, transgenderism would just magically disappear. The borders, we will be able to deport almost every illegal, if not every illegal. Birthright citizenship will revert back to the original people it was intended to in the 14th Amendment or the 15th Amendment. Not 15th, 14th Amendment. Are you saying if women start voting, no more boys and girls sports,
All
two
that,
men?
yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you're saying all of that and we go back to one man, one woman, women raising their own children, everyone kind of looking at homeschooling, we get rid of half of our legislators and put in better people, I'll be open to talking about it. But if that ain't gonna magically happen, then keep moving.
Fallacy Voyager for 20 says, Kathy, I get that saying we shouldn't vote for people who worship demons may be too far, but can you at least agree that worshipping demons is immoral and something that we shouldn't do?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a Christian. I believe there is a God. But I also believe, and right before Vivek called me, I was studying the book of Isaiah. And right around the time you get between Isaiah 40 through 42, God said through Isaiah, you see that man, Cyrus. This is 150 years before there was a Cyrus. He said, you see that man, Cyrus? He said, that's my man. He's a tool in my hand. And I'm going to use him to deliver my people. And then you go into the book of Kings and you see Cyrus does what no one had done up to that point of having a captured people and then releasing them and letting them go back and build their temple. And right after that, I get introduced to Vivek, who saw me debating Dr. Oz and others and liked it, right? And I began to see God, I think, a little bit better, that as a Christian, I don't own him. And that although Vivek, and I was very clear with Vivek, I had many opportunities to share the gospel with him. I would study the Bible. Vivek would pop down and say, what are you reading? And I would be able to talk to him about the word of God. But I explained to Vivek, as a Christian, I don't see you as a child of God, but you have been created in the image of God, and that is a fact. So God loves Vivek just like he loves all of these lunatic feminists. Hence the reason why, I don't call them what I'm really thinking sometimes. But everyone has value, whether I agree with them with it or not. I have a role to play, and that role is to create a nation that my children and grandchildren will inherit one day, that is safe and productive.
Andrew Thrasher says, good evening, Rattlesnake TV. Former senior airman Andrew Thrasher here. As a fellow non-combat personnel, I believe it's considered stolen valor to claim you deserve the same rights as those who have seen combat.
Who said that?
Andrew Thrasher.
I mean, come on, people. Keep up. Stop trying to put words into my mouth. I never said that. And in fact,
I think he's referring to voting.
Yeah, voting. That's just so ridiculous. Stop it. Be better. Everyone just has to be better.
Taguch says, please don't debate Brian Shapiro. He'll get his first win. Brian Shapiro will never win a debate.
Impossible task.
Why should your military service count when the standards have been lowered for you even to join? And before you ask, yes, I've served.
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask. Yeah. When I came out of the military, I was up to 75 push-ups, and I think I was around 20 diamond push-ups. I think I think there's a cohort of men I would have outdone. Not to say that I'm a man. I think we've already been, that I'm the equivalent of a man. Yes, the standards are different because I'm a girl. I'm a woman. And no, I'm not going to be able to do, biologically, the lung capacity of a man, the muscles, all of that. I am different. I am not here defending anything other than that. So come on, people, do better.
Third one from Isaiah here before says, thanks for not answering the question a second time, Kathy. I'm glad someone who put their life on the line in finance believes that they should send men like me to die while you're a talking head behind a desk.
Awesome.
Jason comes in for 20 and says, just stop. You were a POG. I don't know what a POG is. You didn't put your life on the line. Is infantry, the actual warfighters, better than you? Stop exaggerating your military experience.
I have never exaggerated my military experience. I said it.
Briar Wolf wants to know, does she consider herself as proficient debating as she does with her M16? Which one are you better at, Kathy, debates or with the M16?
I'm better at logic and figuring out what is true, what is not true, and how I want to build my life on it. And, receipts, everyone talks about receipts. I grew up on a pig farm in Southern Alabama. I grew up in a one-stop sign town. I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, outhouse in the back, well on the side, the blood of slaves coursing through my veins. And here I am debating and holding my own, have built an amazing life because this country has afforded me the opportunity to do so. No apologies.
This person, we won't read out the first bit, but said, does Kathy believe that women can be pastors? Corey says.
I mean, who am I to judge? I have a preference that that I don't personally want to sit under a woman. However, there are a number of examples in the Bible where God had women in leadership positions as either a prophetess, so someone who is speaking directly to God, and then that woman turns around and tells the men what to do. Women who have gone into battle alongside the men. I'm not the one to put handcuffs on God. He can do whatever he wants to do. I think we get in trouble. I find it very arrogant when finite humans try to say what an infinite God can and cannot do. Yes, there are certain things. There are some immutable facts about God. But then there are other times when it's best to just leave it to God. But
Can I
have my
answer that one,
preference.
Jake?
Sure.
So the priest is the vicar of Christ here on earth. Christ incarnated as a man, not as a woman. And that is why women cannot be priests. This idea of Protestant pastors, just any random person can just go, the Holy Spirit told me to start a church, and so I'm going to lead some sheep or whatever. Like, that is nonsense.
Yeah.
It's a brand new thing that started after the Second Great Awakening in the United States. And so, yeah, I would say women, our typology, we're supposed to follow the mother of God. We're supposed to be like Mary. We're supposed to emulate her. We're not supposed to try to be Christ or be his representation here.
Yeah. Now you're Catholic or Orthodox, so that is very
Orthodox.
different from me as a Protestant. Again, I'm not putting handcuffs on God. I do not believe a man becomes incarnate Jesus. I reject that.
Wait. What? You don't believe Christ incarnated as a man?
No, that isn't that a part of what happens when your Pope goes in front and
Oh, no, we
lifts up?
don't. No. We don't have a pope. I was just saying that Christ, you and I would both agree that with
Yes.
this, unless you have some kind of bizarre, like unless you're a Unitarian or something.
No.
Christ is God. He incarnated through the
Yes.
Virgin Mary and the Holy Spirit as a man.
Yes.
And therefore, we don't think the role of a priest in our church is far more sacred. You have to have apostolic succession and the laying on of hands.
Mhm.
You don't just catch like a wild idea that you want to start a church in a strip mall one day and start preaching to people.
And I would agree with you. I mean, it's very difficult to find a church home my husband and I, to find a church home today. I think feminism has infiltrated a lot of different institutions. And I think, again, just like I said, I think our nation would be better if men what, instead of putting the burden on the woman, I think the burden should go back to the men of being a man and standing up and stepping up to the plate and doing some various things. I think that'll solve. Now, I do think that will magically change the direction of our nation if men
It
assume their
would,
role.
but the problem is that women are the ones who have captured the institutional power that prevents men from even being able to do that. The
I don't
whole
think
reason,
so.
oh, I can prove it. The whole entire reason I'm here is because if a man in my position is saying the things that I'm saying, he gets called a misogynist. He gets accused of impropriety. He can get me too'd. I mean, don't even get me started because I have statistics I can do off the top of my head that will prove to you without a doubt that the institutions of our country are captured by women and they are run from this female centric
Yeah.
prescription, and that's what's got to get changed. And we can't do that as long as any man dares say, hey, I don't think men and women are the same. I don't think they have the same
Well,
responsibilities,
yeah.
duties, or
I mean,
rights.
if a man walks out saying it like that in that wimpy voice with a wimpy posture, absolutely. He's going to put his foot down and it's going to get chopped
No,
off. But
I
I
mean,
believe as
literally
far as
right now, if a man comes out and runs for political office, just saying the things making the same arguments I make, saying
yeah.
the same things that I say from his masculine energy in his position, he gets accused of misogyny. He gets called a woman hater. People think he's mean, he's bad, he wants to enslave women, he wants to take away their rights. And so you're never going to have that happen as long as we have this female tyranny that prevents men from having the proper authority that goes along with the level of responsibility they have. You're not going to see anything change. And until you understand that, we're not going anywhere. We're not going to
Yeah.
get anywhere.
And I don't think that there's a quick fix. I don't think that there's a clean severing that's going to happen. I think it's going to take a lot of time. And I don't think, and if we're asking the government to do the same thing that feminists asked the government, which was to interject itself into the daily livings of people. And now we're going to go and ask the same government to interject yourself and rescind the right. I don't think that's a magic formula. I think, again, if we want to change this country, it's going to be slow. It's going to be hard work. But I think it's worth it.
I just don't think you can do it when you have women trying to usurp the power of men,
I
which
don't
is
think,
antithetical to God's design for us and for the reality. Like what I'm doing is trying to just describe to people the fabric of reality. Like even you had a really, really hard time wrapping your head around the truth, which is that men have a monopoly on force. Men are the enforcers. And that's not always like a privilege, by the way. That's a great burden and a great responsibility. If there's a crazy psycho out in the streets shooting people like there was in Austin the other day, the women don't go out and take care of that.
I
Only
would.
men do.
I
You
would.
couldn't. You
I
couldn't.
would. I
You
carry.
remember what
I
happened?
train.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I do. I mean,
you're not, you and a
again,
bunch of women,
you are not
Kathy,
Jesus. You're not omnipotent. You already said
Kathy,
that you
you and
know
a bunch
more
of
than our founding
women,
fathers.
she's
I'm
not going to
just
let me
saying.
talk. She just talks over me.
Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to tell you the truth here and you refuse to hear it.
Your truth.
Do you think a bunch of female police officers are going to go tackle a psychotic gunman?
Now, are they going to be effective? Do I believe women should be out? Like how Donald Trump had,
Yeah,
the people, the men
female
around him,
secret
and you had these
service
little
that all
short
run and
women.
hide.
Maybe we need to rethink some of these things. You're never going to get me to argue for feminism and all of that.
But you are.
No,
But I'm
I
trying
am
to get,
not.
you
I
are.
am.
You
I
just
am
don't know
not.
it.
No, I
You
know. I
need to
know
come to
because
grips with the
no, but
reality
I'm
that
telling
you are.
you and I are coming from two different places. And I was writing down earlier, I think I know where, where the miss is. And I mean, because there's a disconnect. You think it all, you just take away the 19th Amendment, just take away a woman's right to vote. Everything magically is going to resolve itself. No,
It would. It actually would, though.
Works. That's not how sin works. I'm sorry.
Listen, no, I'm not saying,
works.
I'm not saying the problem of evil disappears, but what we're talking about on a societal
won't.
level,
It
the
wouldn't.
it would fix the institutional problem,
No.
and I proved it and I demonstrated it.
You
Listen,
did not prove it. Let's
Kathy,
be clear.
Kathy, when there's when the next hurricane comes through and takes out half of Florida, are you going to send a crew of women to go get the power grid back up?
Oh my goodness, Rachel. Listen, I'm
Just say
so
no.
grateful.
Just say no. Of course
I mean,
not.
I'm not going to say that because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, everything on brute force. I mean, yes, a man is
It's
stronger.
not just brute
Never
force.
argued it
It's
any other way. I'm just saying, I think it's very naive and very simplistic to think you take away a woman's right to vote and then everything magically happened. What I'm saying is that the government didn't give me the right to vote. The government doesn't have the right to
I know, I
take
already
the right
heard
to
it.
vote.
It's a loss.
Exactly. I already
It's
heard
okay.
everything that you
I'm not
said
going to
also.
convince you, but I think I'm going to convince most of the people watching.
No, I wasn't even trying to convince you. My job, like I said, is to be able to come into all spheres and have a conversation. And because I'm talking to, I don't know, Jake, you got a lot of people who come on your channel, and maybe the diehard who will actually pay money, maybe they don't agree with me. And, just want to keep, cycling the same kind of comments along. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't need anyone to agree with me. I know that I'm right. I know that I'm closer to what is right than what
you're
you
denying
are saying.
reality. You can't be right if you're denying
Rachel,
reality.
I am closer to what is true than what you are. If you think you could just get a pen and go, scratch that out. Okay, everything is great now. No, it's something much more deeper and sinister that is going on in our country. And I think we have to realize that.
This is why women shouldn't vote, you guys. It doesn't matter the logical arguments that I gave her. It doesn't matter how much you explain it. It doesn't. See what I mean?
No,
you don't want
everything
them.
You said
even the
subjective.
ones on our side, you guys. Even the
everything
conservative women are just as bad. They're just as bad.
Conservatism. It's not ordered
Kathy
liberty.
is a nice lady, but she shouldn't be voting and she shouldn't be running things because of this.
Not ordered liberty.
It doesn't matter
I think if we want to solve the problem, I think we start.
I'm right.
Now you just spent okay, everyone, you see her that's maybe she shouldn't vote, but for the rest of us, I earnestly believe that if men and a woman, a husband and a wife come together, is the bedrock of every society. So it'd be, politics, we always say, flow downhill from culture. So if we begin to change culture, what is culture? Values, ideas, prevailing opinions. And I earnestly believe that starts in the home. That's the reason why my husband and I have ordered our lives. Rachel, I'm talking. That's the reason why my husband and I have ordered our lives in the way that we have, to be, as responsible as we can and teaching something that is very different. And then I have, like you, Rachel, the ability to go out into the marketplace of ideas and let's start competing and let's compete better.
All right. Well, FS Claire came in and said, be careful with that stolen valor. 71C is a desk job. You went to MOS school at Fort Relax in Jackson. I served as an airborne combat medic and actually in combat. Finance clerk sit in an air-conditioned decked downrange.
Thank you. You're welcome.
This one comes in saying, Kathy, can you tell the difference between your worldview and feminism? From what I heard today, your worldview is closer to feminism than it is to Christian ethics.
No, not at all. Not at all. And, and here's I think you
can't tell her nothing. She already knows.
Rachel, you literally said, and I hope someone clips it. Rachel literally said she's smarter than our founding father. And so I think you're the one who's very arrogant to say so. Yes. Yeah.
I didn't say I was smarter.
Yeah, actually.
I said, I think
know better than them.
I think that
you go into their homes,
hindsight,
you go into their homes and the docent walks you immediately to almost every last one of their libraries, and they had books from the floor to the ceiling.
Imagine
they
just
read
having
it
to
all.
listen to this just forever, just eternally. She just never stops. I didn't say I was smarter than the founders. I said that with the benefit of historical hindsight and me being an historian, I can look back and see that no, the volatile and crazy history of this nation does not compare to far longer, more sustained, more productive and wealthy and in every way better other empires that have lasted for a millennium. Like, it's not even close. I don't think that you can even compare them from an historic analysis.
Yeah.
I didn't say I was smarter than the founders.
You
Goodness
did
sakes.
actually. You said that you know better. So I have never once said that I am, that I'm omniscient, omnipotent, or
This
any
is
of those
like
things.
it's like talking to a wall, man. It's like she does not hear what I say. She just already knows. She's already
What
made
you're
up her mind,
saying.
and you can't tell
Oh,
her nothing.
likewise. Are you looking in the
You can't
mirror right
tell her
now? Are you looking
nothing.
at your reflection right now? I think you're looking at your reflection and talking to yourself, because that's exact. I mean, why is it that I'm the one who has to move? Why is it that you
Because
find
my
it so
arguments are
arrogant
logical
that
and
you
sound and justified, and
no,
yours are
no, it
not.
is not. No,
I hope
girlfriend,
you
it is
watch some
not.
of the reviews of this debate that
Oh,
are going to
well,
come
I
out.
won't watch it from this channel. I can assure you. I'll
Any
find
channel.
somewhere else.
Watch them from any channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I will.
Make
But
sure
we'll
to like
see.
the video, guys. We have gone over time, and I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time here because I do appreciate you guys taking time out to do this debate today.
What time is it where you are, Jake?
Oh, I'm in Texas. It's 8:42 p.m. Yep. I'm
Goodness
in
sake. I'm
Austin.
going to have to, I should just drive on down there and say hello.
Well, it is 8:42, guys, so we should probably get out of here. I don't know what time it is over there in Philly.
Yeah.
It's
but
9:42. Thank you so much,
9:42.
Jake.
It's
Thank you
been
so
a
much for
pleasure.
the opportunity to be
No
here.
problem.
And to all of those who are listening, even when you know you're walking into the lion's den with best friends, chumming it up, and an audience in the chat room who, already have made up their mind before you say a word, you should still be able to go courageously into every corner of our society and speak your truth. And maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but understand why you believe what you believe, and then stand and speak that truth. Jake,
I
thank you so
agree with
much.
that. And look,
Rachel, thank you
I do
so
want to
much.
say, all jabs aside and all rhetoric aside, I do have a lot of respect for you coming and doing this. And you were the only person who wanted
Me
to step
too.
up and actually do this. So I do have a lot of respect for that. I have a lot of respect for the way that you've lived your life and the things that you've done. I think you are a great example in that respect, and I would never take any of that away from you. So kudos to you for that, Kathy. And I don't mean I hope you watch this so that you can hear people say I won. I don't mean that. I just mean as far as like maybe some of the stuff I'm saying when we're not in the heat of the moment, you'll understand like what I was trying to get at more. That's all I was trying to say.
Right. And will you do the same?
Sure. Of course.
Thank you. I will too.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to stick around and talk to the chat. But ladies, it was fantastic to have you both on, and have a fantastic night.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Kathy.
See you guys.